Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Your Excellencies, dear members of the Board of Trustees, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Kalimera, welcome to the Cyprus Institute. It is a great honor for us to collaborate with the representation of the European Commission in Cyprus, the Embassy of Spain in Cyprus, and the Commissioner for the Environment for today's workshop titled Progressing in Green Transition, Advancing the Clean Energy Agenda through Industrial Applications for Solar Energy. As the Spanish Presidency of the Council of the European Union has said, advancing the green transition as one of its main priorities, the event highlights the framework of cooperation between Spain and Cyprus in matters of policy, technology, know-how, and applications. We will begin today's program with a welcome address by the President of the Cyprus Institute, Professor Malas. Professor Malas, the floor is yours.
Καλημέρα σε όλους. Κυρία Πρόεδρε της Βουλής και Προεδρεύουσα της Δημοκρατίας, κυρία Παναγιώτου, κυρία Ζαμπάρτα, Your Excellency, all welcome. Είναι μεγάλη χαρά που σας έχουμε σήμερα εδώ μαζί μας για να συζητήσουμε τη μετάβαση στην πράσινη ενέργεια. Αν είχαμε αυτή τη συζήτηση πριν 100 χρόνια, θα συζητούσαμε τη μετάβαση από άλλους τρόπους ενέργειας στη χρήση ορυκτών ελαιών. Το Ινστιτούτο των Ορυκτών Καυσίμων, το Ινστιτούτο Κύπρου, πρωταγωνιστεί στην έρευνα για τις ανανεώσιμες πηγές ενέργειας και χαίρομαι γιατί με συνεργασία με την πρεσβεία της Ισπανίας, η οποία είναι η προεδρεύουσα χώρα, I will speak in English later on, Ambassador, και βεβαίως με την Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή, την εκπρόσωπο εδώ πέρα της Ευρωπαϊκής Επιτροπής, έχουμε την ευκαιρία να ενημερώσουμε τον κοινό. Είναι υποχρέωση μας. Και είναι υποχρέωση ειδικά στην Κύπρο να συζητά αυτή τη μετάβαση. Η χώρα μας είναι ενεργειακά απομονωμένη και γίνεται μια έντονη συζήτηση για το πώς φεύγουμε από αυτή την ενεργειακή απομόνωση. Είναι όμως γεωγραφικά χειραφετημένη, γιατί επιδέχεται μια μεγάλη ροή φυσικής ενέργειας από τον ήλιο. Από ό,τι μου λένε οι συνεργάτες μου, εάν καλύψουμε όλη την Κύπρο με φωτοβολταϊκά, θα έχουμε τη δυνατότητα να καλύψουμε τις ανάγκες της Ευρώπης όλης σε ενέργεια. Επομένως, η Κύπρος έχει αυτή την πλεονέκτημα. Όμως, για να κάνουμε αυτή τη μετάβαση πρέπει να κάνουμε σωστές κινήσεις. Και το λέω αυτό και στην παρουσία της κυρία Πρόεδρου, ευχαριστώ για τη μετάφραση. Γιατί γίνεται μια συζήτηση τώρα δημόσια και χωρίς σωστές αποφάσεις οι οποίες να έχουν βάθος και βεβαίως να είναι οι σωστές, δεν μπορούμε να κάνουμε αυτή τη μετάβαση. Όλες οι αποφάσεις που έχουν ληφθεί τα τελευταία 20 χρόνια σε σχέση με την ενεργειακή μας πολιτική δεν ήταν προς την σωστή κατεύθυνση. Και οφείλουμε αυτή τη φορά να κάνουμε σωστές κινήσεις. Ambassador, allow me to say a few words in English. We are co-organizing this event with the collaboration of the Spanish Embassy, of course, representing the Spanish government, who is presiding over the European Union, and of course with the representation of the European Union. Now, we're doing this not because you're only at the helm of the European Union, but because we have a strong collaboration with scientists in Spain, and our countries, of course, have different challenges but common goals in relation to research opportunities in the area of solar energy. And we want to really highlight that, as well as thanking you for supporting this event. So I hope that we will all leave wiser after this event and make sure that the collaboration we have with scientists, not only from Spain, but with other countries, is reinforced so that we give the right quality of research for the politicians to make the right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Malas. It is our distinct honor and privilege to have with us today the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mrs. Dimitriou. Thank you for joining us for this special event. I welcome you to the podium for your address.
Good morning to everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. Kalimera. Buenos días. Buenos días. Κύριε Μαλά, κύριε Πρόεδρε, κυρία Παναγιώτου, κυρία Επίτροπε, κυρία Ζαμπάρτα, είμαι σίγουρη κάποιο θα ξεχάσω. Καλημέρα σε όλους τους εκλεκτούς προσκεκλημένους. Good morning to everybody. And first of all, I would like to say that it is a privilege to be here in the Cyprus Institute, and I will grab something that Mr. Malas said, that we need to invest in science. And we need to collaborate with scientists in order to understand how important it is to proceed to take some proper decisions. The scientists, they keep saying that the bell already rang about the green transmission. And we are already so much late in taking the proper decisions. So I truly admire the role of the Cyprus Institute and everything that they managed to accomplish. I had the privilege recently to visit the Cyprus Institute, and I may say so, Mr. Malas, that I'm impressed. Well done for the excellent work that it's happening here in the Institute, and I can make sure you that the House of Representatives and me personally, we will be very supportive to your work. Κυρίες και κύριοι, ξεκινώντας με αυτό, θέλω να πω ότι προσφάτως είχα την ευκαιρία να επισκεφτώ the Cyprus Institute και είμαι πραγματικά εντυπωσιασμένη από το επίπεδο της επιστημονικής κατάρτισης, αλλά και της ερευνητικής δραστηριότητας και δουλειάς η οποία εκπονείται εδώ. Και είναι γι' αυτό το λόγο που η Βουλή των Αντιπροσώπων και εγώ προσωπικά θα στηρίξουμε το ρόλο του Ινστιτούτου όσο καλύτερα μπορούμε και όπως περισσότερο μπορούμε, και βεβαίως είναι η υποχρέωσή μας σε συνεργασία με τους επιστήμονες, με τους ερευνητικούς φορείς και όχι μόνο, να βρούμε λύσεις και να δώσουμε απαντήσεις με σωστές πολιτικές για ένα ζήτημα που πλέον δυστυχώς μας έχει ξεπεράσει και αφορά την πράσινη μετάβαση. Οι επιστήμονες, όπως έχω πει προηγουμένως, ήδη έχουν προειδοποιήσει ότι το καμπανάκι όχι μόνο χτύπησε, αλλά χτύπησε και πολύ έντονα. Είναι καιρός λοιπόν να δούμε τι κάνουμε και ειδικά στην Κύπρο μας, Κύπρος είναι μια χώρα η οποία θεωρώ ότι τουλάχιστον είναι ευλογημένη με ηλιοφάνεια τόσες μέρες το χρόνο, έχει ελεγχθεί προηγουμένως και από τον κύριο Μαλά. Όλα αυτά τα πλεονεκτήματα, λοιπόν, η αγαθά, θα πρέπει να τα αξιοποιήσουμε μέσω της πράσινης μετάβασης για να μπορέσουμε να προστατεύσουμε πρώτα και πάνω απ' όλα το περιβάλλον, αλλά βεβαίως και να μετουσιωθούν σε πολιτικές ωφέλιμες για τον τόπο. So energy has been propelling the development of human civilization for decades. In the context of the clean energy agenda, synergy among policymakers, scientists, and the relevant industry is crucial in order to implement comprehensive strategies and practical solutions towards a sustainable future. I therefore grab the opportunity to extend my warm congratulations to initiatives like today, especially once more to the Cyprus Institute, of providing the opportunity of all stakeholders to engage in a practical, in a valuable exchange of perspectives, to share information, to discuss, to see what more we can do to establish a framework that is mandatory and really important, to see what more we can do. The vision of the green transmission has been since its inception based on the concept of collaboration and collective effort. In this light, we cordially welcome to this event the expertise of our friends from Spain, a country that has traditionally maintained not only friendly relations with Cyprus, Your Excellency, but also we managed to proceed to a collaboration to a lot other aspects. And in this spirit, we need to see what more we can do, especially for these important thematics, and especially now that you having the presidency. And I need to say that these very good relations were recently reaffirmed during the visit of the Spanish Prime Minister, Your Excellency, Mr. Sanchez, to Cyprus as part of the preparations for the Spanish Presidency. And also, I have the honor to say that I maintain excellent relations with the ambassador of Spain in Cyprus, that we do have the pleasure and the honor for him to be today with us. So we need to see how these two countries are aligned and what more we can do, especially in the field of the green transmission, of education, of technology, and so on. We have so many things to do together. So pursuing, however, the successful implementation of the Green Deal and the energy transition objectives, a new promising avenue for collaboration emerges between Cyprus and Spain. Our countries bound by the Mediterranean similarities, characterized by sunlight, is the first one, a plethora of sunlight, and are prime examples of sustainable energy potential. Given their status among the sunniest countries in Europe, there exists a unique opportunity for joint initiatives that harness solar energy in view to driving our collective commitment to sustainable investments. So what I need to say is that as a House of Representatives, we are strongly committed to support Cyprus and Spain to achieve our goals. And we do recognize the significant contribution that the industrial sector can make to this effort. And I also need to say that we monitor the progress. Recently, we have had, I think it was Mr. Theobem, to be honest, we had, let's say, a seminar to see where we are standing, and still we have a lot of things to do. That is why I believe it's so important, the session today, and we're looking forward for the results in order to use them or even present them, if it's that possible, to the members of the parliament in order for them to consider what more we shall do. Let's not forget that we have the package of Fit for 55. This is how it is called, and we need to proceed with our goals, and also that includes the legislative package we need to proceed, and of course sector-specific challenges. And we cannot just pay taxes because we didn't manage to achieve our goals. We need to see how we change all this, and yes, we will have the policies that are important. I will stay until here. Και θα πω, and you will allow me, Your Excellency, to say something very brief in Greek, is that, και στα ελληνικά να πω, ότι δεν έχουμε στόχους τους οποίους πρέπει να φτάσουμε. Ονομάζεται σχέδιο Fit for 55 ή άλλος πώς. Δεν μπορεί απλά να πληρώνουμε ή να καταλήγουμε να πληρώνουμε για αυτούς τους στόχους τους οποίους δεν μπορούμε να to achieve, να πιάσουμε. Γι' αυτό χρειάζεται λοιπόν, έστω και τώρα, αφού έχουμε καθυστερήσει αρκετά και δεν ισχύει μόνο στην Κύπρο αυτό, αλλά και στην Ευρώπη, να προχωρήσουμε λοιπόν με τις σωστές πολιτικές για την πράσινη μετάβαση. Σήμερα έχουμε μια ευκαιρία, ακριβώς λόγω και της συμμετοχής φίλων επιστημόνων και του ίδιου του πρέσβη από την Ισπανία, να αντιληφθούμε ότι μέσω συνεργειών μπορούμε να χρησιμοποιήσουμε είτε καλές πρακτικές, είτε και συνέργειες για να αντιμετωπίσουμε αυτό το πολύ σημαντικό ζήτημα. Οπότε και εδώ οι συνέργειες είναι εξαιρετικά σημαντικές για να δούμε πώς οδηγόμαστε σε αυτή την πράσινη εποχή, την οποία τόσο πολύ έχουμε ανάγκη, ειδικά με όλα όσα συμβαίνουν γύρω μας, και να προστατεύσουμε το περιβάλλον. Μένω εδώ ξανά θερμά συγχαρητήρια στο Cyprus Institute για όλα όσα κάνουν και ευχαριστούμε όχι μόνο που πρωτοπορούν και διοργανώνουν τέτοιου είδους ημερίδες, αλλά που καθημερινά μας ενισχύουν μέσα από την ερευνητική και επιστημονική τους κατάρτιση. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you, Mrs. Dimitriou, for your kind words. I would like to kindly invite to the podium the Honorable Commissioner for Environment, Dr. Maria Panagiotou.
Honorable Speaker of the House of the Representatives, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Spain and Cyprus, Professor Malas, Mrs. Zabarta, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to address today's event organized by the Cyprus Institute and the Embassy of Spain. Today's event and the presence here of such distinguished speakers and audience signifies our collective commitment to progressing in the green transition. I wish to extend my congratulations to the Cyprus Institute on the initiative for organizing this event on this very topical issue. In an era where climate change poses a significant threat to our planet, and the world is struggling with the consequences of carbon-intensive practices, the need for a swift transition to renewable energy sources has never been more pressing. However, it is crucial to acknowledge that our green transition should also embrace the principles of a circular economy and the reduction of electricity consumption. While we champion solar energy, we must also consider the life cycle of solar panels. The International Renewable Energy Agency projects that by 2050, solar panel waste could reach approximately 78 million tons globally. This highlights the importance of developing effective recycling and repurposing strategies for the solar PV panels, turning a potential environmental challenge into an economic opportunity. Professor Malas, I thank you for the opportunity to be here and discuss with all stakeholders the progress made by Cyprus so far in meeting the objectives set by the European Union regarding the green transition, as well as the prospects of using solar energy in industrial applications. As clearly stated in the program of governance of the President of the Republic of Cyprus, Mr. Nikos Christodoulidis, green transition is a top priority of the Republic of Cyprus, and the speeding up of this process is essential for the economy and society in general. Cyprus has committed itself to a green transition that not only promotes environmental sustainability, but also fully utilizes the economic benefits of renewable energy. Renewable energy is sustainable and has a low environmental impact, thus is key to a greener and more resilient future. Unlike finite fossil fuel reserves, renewable sources such as solar energy offer a literally limitless and clean alternative. By utilizing renewable energy, we do not only reduce our dependence on finite resources, but also reduce greenhouse emissions that are responsible for global warming and climate change. The European Union has set forth ambitious objectives for the green transition, urging member states to reduce their carbon footprints and embrace cleaner alternatives by promoting a massive investment in renewable energy. In March 2023, the EU agreed on stronger legislation to increase its renewable capacity, raising the EU's binding target for 2030 to 42.5%, with the ambition to reach 45%, which would almost double the existing share of renewable energy in the EU. Cyprus, as a member state of the EU, in order to support this green transition, must look at its own industry and find ways to capitalize on the untapped potential of renewable energy sources and of solar energy in particular. One of our country's greatest assets is the generous gift of sunshine that we enjoy throughout the year. Being blessed with abundant sunshine, Cyprus stands in a unique position to utilize these natural resources and make significant steps towards its sustainability. By investing in solar energy, we invest in cleaner air, healthier ecosystems, and a more sustainable country for generations to come. Solar power generation has minimal air and water pollution, mitigating the negative impacts associated with traditional energy resources. At the same time, solar energy improves energy security and economic stability. An energy portfolio diversification also protects the country from the volatility of global energy markets and geopolitical tensions. However, in order for this shift towards cleaner, more sustainable practices to take place, renewable energy must also be embraced by the industrial sector. The adoption of solar energy in industrial applications is a strategic move towards ensuring long-term competitiveness and resilience. By integrating solar power with photovoltaic systems and energy storage solutions into industrial processes, we should also be able to reduce reliance on traditional energy sources, mitigate operational costs, and most importantly, minimize the environmental impact of industrial activities. As the Spanish presidency of the Council of the European Union has said, advancing the green transition as one of its main priorities. Today's panel discussions with representatives of ministers, academics, and research institutions, private companies, and societal stakeholders will focus on the lessons learned from the Spanish experience, so as to help advance solar energy deployment in the industry of Cyprus. I cannot emphasize enough the power of collaboration, which actually supports the attainment of the 17th Sustainable Development Goal for a sustainable future. Partnerships with other countries, international entities, businesses, and research institutions further amplify our efforts. Together, we can create synergies and foster collaboration with the EU and commitment to the advancement of the clean energy agenda. We look forward to learning from each other, sharing experiences, and collaborating to promote the deployment of solar energy and other renewable energy resources in Cyprus. Renewable energy is good for the climate, good for the Cyprus energy independence, and moreover, it creates jobs, paving the way towards a sustainable future. Thank you for your commitment to this goal. I wish you all a successful meeting and fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Panagiotou. We now continue with an address by the head of the representation of the European Commission in Cyprus, Mrs. Mistos Zambasta. Mrs. Zambasta, the floor is yours.
Καλή σας μέρα, εξοχότατη Πρόεδρο της Βουλής, αγαπητέ κύριε Μαλά, καθηγητή Μαλά, αγαπητοί Επίτροποι, dear Ambassador Gabriel Ferran Carrion, ladies and gentlemen, I will continue in English now. First of all, I would like to thank the Spanish Embassy in Cyprus and the Cyprus Institute for organizing this important event, and of course the Cyprus Institute for hosting us. There is no better time to be talking about clean energy agenda, green transition, and renewables than now. As we speak, the European Commission and EU member states and the whole world is in Dubai to participate in COP28, the UN Climate Change Conference. Because the message is clear that climate change is a global phenomenon, and as such, it needs a global response. The challenge is devising a collective global strategy which ensures the well-being of people and the environment. And in the past, these two elements were regarded by some as mutually exclusive, that up until recently you had policymakers believing that environmental protection needed to be sacrificed in order to achieve growth, foster innovation, and create jobs. And some politicians would still today have you believe that human activity is unrelated to climate change. But the evidence is now undeniable, because we can no longer talk about climate change as a vague concept for the future. Climate change is here, and we're living through it. That is why COP28 is so important, and that is why the EU's prominent role in mobilizing global efforts and in setting global standards is crucial. One of the many EU initiatives that we are promoting at COP28 is a global pledge on renewables and energy efficiency. The pledge calls for the tripling of the world's renewable energy capacity by 2030 and doubling of global energy efficiency improvements by the same year. The sense of direction is obvious. Renewable energy is crucial in our global move towards fossil fuel-free energy systems. With the European Green Deal, as well as the Fit for 55 legislative package, the EU is setting a benchmark for how to use this moment of change as an opportunity for a more sustainable future. As you know, and as the Commissioner has already mentioned, we have a legally binding target to reduce our collective carbon emissions by 55% by 2030, and to become fully climate neutral by 2050. To achieve this, we're comprehensively changing how we do things, both as a society and as an economy. The EU's green transition and clean energy agenda is rooted on three core principles. One, achieving greater energy efficiency, so we just need to consume less energy. Two, we need to ensure that a greater proportion of our energy mix comes from renewables. And three, securing greater energy EU independence through diversification of our energy supply. Now, renewables obviously are a fundamental element in these efforts for greater energy diversity and independence. We're aiming, as the Commissioner said, for a 45% energy share target for renewables by 2030. Solar energy, particularly in Southern Europe, is a key component of the renewables mix. Its wider usage in industry especially can be a game changer. So where does Cyprus fit in with this vision, with this strategy? As an EU member state, Cyprus has of course contributed to and endorsed the green vision during Council negotiations. So this means that the EU's green agenda for climate neutrality by 2050 is also Cyprus's agenda. The Cyprus Recovery and Resilience Facility Plan, with a 500 million euros earmarked for green investment and reform, as well as its National Energy and Climate Plan, reflects this. These plans also outline a series of measures for supporting the green transition of its transport sector, water and waste management, as well as a push for greater energy interconnectivity and a more prominent role for renewables in the Cyprus energy mix. Just like every member state, Cyprus has its unique set of energy challenges. But this position of Cyprus of energy isolation can and should be countered by the fact that we have close to 300 days of sunlight. An energy island that is not connected to mainland Europe's electricity and energy grids, there is an obvious practical and financial argument for the merit of Cyprus being energy self-sufficient. With developments in natural gas production and electricity connectivity plans yet to take off, now we need a concerted focus and general uptake in energy production and consumption from renewable sources, from households to public buildings to industry. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the wholesale use of solar energy in Cyprus is a no-brainer. With the technological advancements, EU financial support and national schemes, the concept that every household has a solar panel and is therefore not only energy sufficient, but also an energy producer, is not a pipe dream. It's a realistic target and a necessary one that also extends to all public and private buildings and also, of course, to industry. Cyprus must use its comparative advantages, and the EU is here to support this transition. Of course, this virtuous circle cannot be completed if other developments happen in parallel. So that means electricity storage capacities for the excess production from renewables, the digitalization and upgrade of the transport circuit to cater for electronic vehicles, and the ultimate link up with the electricity grid in mainland Europe. Green transition comes from a shift in mindset. It is about infusing habits, skills, jobs, innovation, entrepreneurship, and regulatory frameworks with an environmental consciousness. And it is about supporting citizens and businesses during this systemic change to minimize negative impact and to maximize possibilities. This is no longer a choice, it is dictated by reality. We have had a global pandemic and a war in our neighborhood, and this has underlined the EU's precarious position on energy security and thus, in turn, has expedited the pace of the change required. The dilemma we face is not whether we should go through the green transition or not. The true question is whether we stay ahead of the curve, or are we left behind by history and the rest of the world. The EU is determined to be a leader in setting environmental standards, as well as in green innovation and green growth. To this end, we have adopted a whole set of measures supporting various sectors in the green transition, including road, aviation, and maritime transport sectors to shift towards more efficient vehicles and fleets, a better infrastructure to cater for new technologies, as well as introducing a price on pollutant vehicles and carbon pricing so we can reinvest these funds in clean technology. In parallel, we're simplifying our regulatory framework and access to funding and investing in green and digital skills, because what we want is to make Europe the home of industrial innovation and clean tech. And crucially, with the Social Climate Fund, which boasts around 86 billion euros, we're here to support vulnerable citizens and SMEs during their green transition. But as you all know, the only way to start a marathon is to take the first step. So the EU Green Deal and Clean Energy Agenda shows the way. I am sure that today's event will be illuminating, and I hope you have fruitful and constructive discussions. Thank you. But before I step off, I've been asked to do a very, very quick summary in Greek, so please bear with me. Η κλιματική αλλαγή είναι εδώ για να μείνει και απαιτεί μια διεθνή προσπάθεια, την οποία βλέπουμε σήμερα να εξελίσσεται στο Ντουμπάι, στη Σύνοδο Κορυφής COP28. Η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση πρωτοστατεί σε αυτή την προσπάθεια και έχει στόχο να είναι ηγέτης όχι μόνο στην οριοθέτηση των κανόνων που διέπουν την περιβαλλοντική προστασία, αλλά και στην πράσινη ανάπτυξη και οικονομία. Ένα μεγάλο μέρος της Ευρωπαϊκής Πράσινης Συμφωνίας είναι η αύξηση της ανανεώσιμης ενέργειας και εδώ η Κύπρος μπορεί να αποτελέσει ένα φωτεινό παράδειγμα. Στόχος πρέπει να είναι η αυτάρκεια κάθε σπιτιού, κάθε δημοσίου κτηρίου, κάθε βιομηχανικής μονάδας σε ενέργεια. Ένας ρεαλιστικός στόχος για τον οποίο η Κύπρος μπορεί να βασιστεί στη βοήθεια της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you, Mrs. Zambarta. I would like to kindly invite now to the podium His Excellency, the Ambassador of Spain in Cyprus, Mrs. Gabrielle Ferran Carrion. Thank you. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Dear President of the House of the Representatives, dear Commissioner for the Environment, Director of the Institute of Cyprus, Ambassador, representative of the EU, thank you all, friends, colleagues. It's a real pleasure to be this morning in the Institute of Cyprus in the inauguration of the seminar on the industrial application of solar energy. I would like to start by thanking the Director of the Institute of Cyprus, Professor Malas, for the opportunity he has offered us to present the situation of the solar energy in Spain. I would like also to thank the Ambassador Zambarta for the support we have received in this activity from the presentation of the EU. This seminar will allow us to share our experience with Cyprus and learn about your achievements and the present policy you are implementing to reach these goals. Our two countries, due to the geographical situation in the Mediterranean, benefits from sun as a source of energy. It was only natural that such an activity took place, and I'm grateful to the Institute to have organized it. The green transition, as it has been mentioned, and the renewable energy have been high in the Spanish priority during this presidency. First of all, in relation to our collective effort to strengthen our strategic autonomy, and therefore reducing vulnerabilities in essential supplies like food, health, and of course, energy. Recent events in Russia's war against Ukraine have shown the risk for Europe of the present dependency from third country supplies. For many countries in Southern Europe, like Cyprus or Spain, solar energy is a powerful instrument toward reaching our strategic autonomy. But it's also necessary to tackle the effects of climate change at the global and European levels. By promoting and developing a coherent policy in regards to solar energy, we will be in a better position to reach our objectives towards climate neutrality and decarbonization of our economy. I'm sure activities like this seminar will contribute in a decisive manner. Thank you very much, Director, and thank you very much for organizing that.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Before proceeding to the policy framework session, Dr. Marios Georgiou, head of Protea Solar Energy Facility, will briefly explain to us the structure of our event. Maria, the floor is yours.
Welcome everyone from my side. We are talking about advancing green energy, but a bit slow, sorry. It was obviously the break a leg thing, but that they didn't mean this to be literally. So, it didn't understand. Not even AI got that. At least my talk is aligned with that. Okay. So, our event today is focused on preparing our journey towards a green future. Today, we're back on shared narrative aimed at advancing the green transition by bringing together a diverse array of shared stakeholders, from policymakers, technology research providers, researchers, local authorities, and industries. Drawing inspiration from the commodities between Cyprus and Spain, particularly regarding the high solar potential, as you already mentioned, we are privileged to host experts from Spain who will enlighten us on the corresponding efforts, activities, and projects in their country. Furthermore, we'll get the chance to hear how collaborative efforts mirroring initiatives like EU Solaris can amplify our endeavors towards sustainable practices. Our event will be unfolded in 3 sessions. In the first session, we'll talk about policies, European guidelines, and joint activities that pave the way for a greener future. We'll also explore the local potential and cutting-edge technologies developed to steer us to this right direction. Following that, in the second session, we will reveal new projects and concepts related to local industry, but also local community advancement. In the final session, a distinguished panel comprising from local industry leaders, researchers, representatives from funding agencies and the Ministry of Energy, including a Spanish expert, will engage in a thought-provoking discussion. They will highlight the industry needs, showcase existing and developed technologies, navigate the policy framework, and shed light on funding opportunities, which is what people care the most. So, as we collectively immerse ourselves in these conversations, let us seize the opportunity for collaboration, synergies, and knowledge exchange. Together, we lay the foundation for a sustainable future provided by innovation, shared experience, and resolution commitment to the green transition. So, having said that, I would like to invite to the podium Professor Zachariadis, so we can actually start with the policy session and give us his first discussion about the policy framework. Professor Zachariadis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Apologies for, I wanted so much to stay, not to go to have all these difficulties in the House of Representatives. Wanted to learn so much more things about it, so thank you once more, Professor, and everybody. Mr. Malas, you will send us all the results so we can use them, and I will send them, and gladly, I think we can organize something together as the Cyprus Institute and the House of Representatives to see what more we can do and how we can perceive things from your know-how and your scientific initiative. Thank you so much. Apologies.
Thank you.
Your Excellency. All the other three will stay.
Okay, shall we continue? I guess yes. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. Excellencies, dear guests, dear colleagues. I was asked to provide a very brief overview of the evolution of the clean energy agenda in Cyprus, in the EU, and then a little bit some details about its implementation in Cyprus. I would say that this graph, although quite detailed, shows the historic evolution, the so-called long journey of the EU's energy and climate policy. On the top part, the blue, the blue series shows the temporal evolution of energy policy, where, of course, the European community was set up on the basis of energy aspects, the European Coal and Steel Community, and how it evolved over the years up to the Lisbon Treaty in the early 21st century. Climate policy was not a concern in the 50s and in the 60s. It started as an environmental policy concern. Then came the Rio summit, the first climate change summit, and so on. And from one point onwards, around 2009, it was understood that energy and climate policy have to be linked together because climate change is mainly due to greenhouse gas emissions, which are at least by 2/3 emitted by the energy system. And that's how we came up to the so-called 20-20-20 by 2020 package, which means 20% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, 20% penetration of renewables, and 20% improvements in energy efficiency to be achieved by the year 2020. That's why the 520s. This was updated and the ambition increased with an agreement by EU leaders in 2014, agreeing on 2030 targets, which were stronger, of course, than the ones foreseen for 2020. Then came the notion, the concept of the energy union, with 5 pillars: energy security, the strengthening of the market, energy efficiency, decarbonization, and innovation, and out of which a relevant regulation was made, and out of which the first integrated energy and climate plans were prepared. Up to that point, there were separate plans of each member state for energy efficiency, for renewable energy, for greenhouse gas emissions. These were integrated, and the first of these plans were submitted by the end of 2019 in the frame of a relevant energy union governance regulation. And more recently, of course, came the European Green Deal by the end of 2019, and the European Climate Law and the Fit for 55 package. I will talk a little bit more about this in the next 2 slides. The European Green Deal, which everybody has heard about, should not be confused with something that is only related to climate change, because this is a quite common mistake that is done. It is considered to be a very ambitious plan of the EU to address all environmental challenges. And that's why, because it is economy-wide, it is called a new growth strategy for Europe, and it includes not only climate change mitigation and adaptation, clean energy, okay, but the circular economy as well, buildings, the transport sector, road transport, but also aviation and shipping, the whole agri-food system with the so-called from farm to fork strategy, the protection of nature, zero pollution without toxic substances, and of course the social aspect, trying to ensure that, as it is called, nobody should be left behind, that the transition should not at least deteriorate social equity problems. That's about the European Green Deal, but we are now talking about energy and climate, the clean energy agenda that is very closely related to climate policy. So to deliver the European Green Deal, that was first announced in December 2019. By summer 2021, the European Commission proposed the so-called Fit for 55 package, which some of the speakers mentioned before. So this focuses on energy and climate. And it is, again, something very ambitious because it involved proposals by 2021 to change or to introduce 13 regulations or directives, amend some of the directives, introduce new regulations, with all objectives that are related to energy and greenhouse gas emissions. Reducing emissions faster, accelerating the penetration of renewables, increasing energy efficiency improvements across the economy, focusing on the emissions of road transport, strengthening considerably the environmental requirements from the sectors of aviation and shipping, which has received less attention as international sectors up to now, promoting infrastructure for these improvements, especially in electromobility and alternative fuels, but also developing a forest strategy, and adapting the energy taxation levels, which are as minimum levels prescribed by the Energy Taxation Directive, to the needs of a low-carbon economy. These were the proposals of summer 2021. At the same time, in summer 2021, EU leaders adopted the so-called European Climate Law, which foresees this 55 number, reducing emissions around the EU by 55% in 2030 compared to 1990, but also adopting as a legal obligation the net zero emissions across the EU by 2050. What has been the progress of all these 13 packages so far? First of all, I don't think there has been any precedent before in EU's history with so many legislative changes happening at the same time. This underlines the importance that is put at the EU level, especially regarding the climate emergency. Well, after following several negotiations, as you can imagine, with 13 legislative packages that have to be agreed between the Council, the Parliament, and the European Commission, most proposals had more or less been approved in different amended forms compared to the initial proposals of the European Commission, had been approved by this autumn, and transformed to new regulations and amended directives. With the exception of the Energy Taxation Directive, which requires unanimity, and it's not easy to see how this can be agreed and to what extent it can be agreed. Now, all these changes are clearly aligned with the scientific consensus on the urgency to address the climate crisis. At the same time, it is clear that there was no single, unified, uniform, comprehensive impact assessment, as the EU always does, and as national legislations also require. But there was no universal, homogeneous impact assessment for all these legislative packages, but individual impact assessments for the different legislative changes, which has to do probably with political calculations, with how much could be negotiated, but it also has to do with the emergency, with the urgency, let's say. But at the same time, this understandably led to concerns by national governments to what extent all these changes will cost, what could be the benefits, on the other hand, from different legislative changes by country, because not all countries are the same, whether there are risks to competitiveness, to jobs, to public finances, and so on. Which means that a very detailed analysis had to be done. We tried to assist the government of Cyprus from 2021 to 2023 with different scenarios, different calculations, different assessments, following the negotiations, following very closely the negotiations that were held at different configurations of the European Council, the energy ministers, the environment ministers, and so on. But of course, we have to say that at the same time with the legislative changes, there have been specific financial streams that have been decided at EU level to enable this green transition. So the Recovery and Resilience Facility was not fully green, but it required that at least 37% would be devoted to climate-related measures. And then there were fully climate-related funds, such as the Innovation Fund, the Modernization Fund, which, however, relates to the 10 least developed countries, so this is not relevant for Cyprus, the Just Transition Fund, and the Social Climate Fund that Mrs. Zambarta has mentioned. I will not go, of course, into the details, but understandably, there is a large part of the EU budget and the additional funding that was secured through common lending through the Recovery and Resilience Facility for these purposes. Having said that, we should keep in mind that Europe is currently dependent on imported energy. Each member state to a different degree, but overall it is. The transition changes this import dependency, but depending on how this will happen, we risk becoming dependent on other countries for other reasons. And this map shows there are some more slides that are hidden, so you can get some more information and data sources if you get the presentation file. This shows the extent to which Europe depends on other countries for critical raw materials, and critical raw materials are mainly needed for digitization and the green transition. All these different raw materials, many of whose names we haven't even heard, but are important for our mobile phones, for our solar panels, for our insulation schemes, for the batteries of electric vehicles, and so on, are not in sufficient supply in Europe. One matter of dependency is where these raw materials can be extracted, and the other issue is where these raw materials are processed to products that we will use. The answer to the second question is in China. Almost all raw materials are processed to final goods in China, which also possesses a very large number of these critical raw materials. So this is clearly a challenge. There are not only synergies, there are trade-offs, there are challenges, there are different issues that have to be addressed. Now, moving a little bit to Cyprus, this is just a picture that you don't have to read about. It's just the current situation and the different sectors that contribute to greenhouse gas emissions according to officially reported data of the latest available year, 2021. To what extent power generation, road transport, agriculture and waste, and aviation and shipping contribute to emissions, we will not go through this. This is just a snapshot, again, may be useful more, and we have an additional graph hidden, which you can look into. But how has this policy that I showed previously been translated to Cyprus? Of course, in line, fully in line with the relevant EU regulations and directives. I said that the first national energy and climate plans integrated for energy and climate were submitted by the end of 2019 and 2020. So this was done by Cyprus as well. So all member states, and Cyprus, like all member states, did this, submitted in early 2020 its first national energy and climate plan. This, according to the relevant governance regulation, has to be revised by next June. But by last June, each member state had to submit a draft revision of what is going to come as a final revision in June 2024. All member states had to submit this by June, but 6 member states have not submitted these draft revisions yet, by the way. Cyprus submitted this draft revision in July 2023, and this is the latest policy document that is also under discussion with the Parliament and so on. It was approved by the government, by the by the Cabinet, by the Council of Ministers, and so this is the official policy, but this is also under discussion in the Parliament. Of course, these energy and climate plans include energy and emission scenarios for different scenarios, yes, different potential evolutions according to the stringency and the ambition of policies to be adopted. And they also include a comprehensive impact assessment, assessing the investment needs to realize these scenarios, the effects on economic output and employment, and the distributional impacts by income groups, so social equity considerations as well as the impacts on health and so on. These impact assessments have been done essentially by our team at the Cyprus Institute with the support of DG Reform of the European Commission. We conducted the same impact assessment of the previous National Energy and Climate Plan as well. So this is under consultation now. It is available on the internet, not the impact assessment only, but the entire National Energy and Climate Plan. Overall, I would say that our Energy and Climate Policy Group has developed a number of models, mathematical computational models, that are more or less listed here on the left-hand side, different kinds of models that are used both for scientific reasons, also for international studies, but also for studies that are related to Cyprus, to perform different policy assessments, depending on the needs. Some of them have to do with more clearly techno-economic assessments, and some of them have to do with broader socio-economic impact assessments. So we have developed over the years a suite of models that can be used in isolation or in combination to address different policy questions. The main concern is the policy questions that we need to address, because we try to be useful to policymakers in these results. So what is the draft revision of the NECP that was submitted in July about? Well, perhaps just to summarize, There have been a number of policies, not only that have been already adopted, but those that are planned to be adopted in a realistic manner, and also policies that are funded mainly with the aid of different EU funds, and we conducted a very detailed assessment of the different investment flows from each possible EU fund. Again, you can find more information in the hidden slides here. The main scenario, which is the more ambitious scenario, you could say, a balance between ambitious and realistic scenario, perhaps, shows that the policies that to be adopted in this scenario by the Republic of Cyprus will not be sufficient for meeting a key target, which is not the only target, but this is a key target, especially for governments of member states, the emission reduction target of the sectors that are subject to the so-called effort sharing regulation. These are the sectors out of power generation and heavy industry, all the other sectors, including buildings, transport, agriculture, waste, and light industry, for which governments are themselves responsible, because the other sectors that are subject to the emissions trading system are obligations of private installations, of course, to the extent that the private installations are state-owned and determine, for example, the electricity price in a country. These also matter, but the sectors that are subject to the effort-sharing regulation matter very clearly and very directly, especially for governments. So the policies will not be sufficient to meet this target and will marginally be insufficient to meet another binding target on final energy consumption, on reduction of final energy consumption, meaning improving energy efficiency economy-wide. The target that is foreseen for the country in the revised Energy Efficiency Directive, which came in force last month. There are other individual targets that can be met. There are other targets that are still under negotiations, and so on. As regards the impacts, however, of these policies, because as I said, the impact assessment had to be quite comprehensive, the policies are not expected to significantly affect income distribution, although they may have a cost to households which require attention, because energy affordability may be an issue, but that's why there is a new fund as well, the Social Climate Fund that Mrs. Zambarta mentioned, but I will not go into detail. The implementation of more ambitious policies shows that it can have small but positive impacts on economic development and jobs, because the sectors that will benefit from green energy measures in Cyprus are relatively labor-intensive compared to other more capital-intensive sectors, and can boost local economic activity. That's why we assess that this can be done at a relatively positive impact on growth and jobs. But apart from the significant financial resources for investments that are needed, and to a large extent available thanks to EU funds, a key challenge is the administrative capacity and labor shortages, and I'll come back to this in a while. So if we have to summarize the current situation and what are the main challenges to make real progress in decarbonization and the deployment of clean energy, if we split into sectors, in the sectors of building and industry, we could say that we have well-known barriers. They are very well known from policy and also from scientific research in the international literature. There are several barriers that I will not go into these. There are financial constraints. There are issues that have to do with the willingness of households or small firms, or the knowledge of households and small firms to adopt energy efficiency measures, even if they can have access to a subsidy. The increased costs of raw materials, which are key for solar panels mainly, but also for energy efficiency improvements, is a challenge. Labor shortages is a challenge, especially because energy renovations in buildings and industry compete at the same time with the construction of new buildings. And construction of new buildings is certainly more profitable to developers and construction companies. So there is a challenge there with a labor force that cannot increase very fast, and with labor shortages around Europe, And at the same time, there is this policy for a renovation wave around Europe. So all EU member states must renovate their public and private buildings by 2030 at an accelerating pace. So this is a European-wide problem, but now we are focusing on Cyprus. For example, there was a very interesting study from the strategy unit of the French Prime Minister that came out last month, saying that in order to be able to have the labor force to perform adequate energy renovations in French buildings, almost all new construction has to stop. Okay, so this is really a challenge. It is a challenge that is faced by public policymakers and is not easy to transmit to the private sector, because if the private sector finds more profitability in construction of new buildings, they will focus there. This is one additional barrier based on the well-known barriers that I mentioned before. In the road transport sector, the main key is electric mobility, both for passenger and for freight vehicles. A main challenge remains, although at a diminishing rate, the purchase cost of electric vehicles, which are relatively high cost still, and the adequacy of the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. In some countries it is more advanced, in Cyprus it is much less advanced, but the penetration of electric vehicles is also pretty low here. But at the same time, we must keep in mind that there is a very strong political and economic push for electromobility, and this is reflected at the International Energy Agency's reports, the European Union's scenarios for 2030 and 2050. We should not underestimate the dynamics and the potential cost decreases and the potential availability of battery gigafactories in Europe and the rest. But this is a key aspect for decarbonizing road transport. At the same time, of course, with decarbonizing power generation, because we need electricity for vehicles which is clean and not generated through combustion of fossil fuels. So in power generation, okay, we know that there are delays in the deployment of, in the use of natural gas in our power plants. There are delays in the infrastructure on energy storage, which is crucial because now we have faster penetration of especially solar panels than what the grid can endure, and that's why we would need energy storage. Electricity prices for consumers are not going down. This can be attributed also to the way that something like an electricity market operates here. But a key question for the coming years is the expansion and the modernization of the electricity grid, from smart meters to consumers up to the transmission, the high voltage system. This is extremely crucial, and there are delays. At the same time, there are delays around Europe in these aspects. So we should not just start crying that Cyprus is lagging behind and is the only country that is lagging behind. There are huge challenges with the penetration of renewables and the existence of an appropriate grid around Europe. In the other greenhouse gas emitting sectors, there are delays, there are issues that have to do especially with methane emissions from waste sites and also from livestock. And these are politically very difficult sectors, especially the agriculture and livestock sector. The issue of waste management is also tricky, but there may be some green lights, there may be some good developments. So I will finish this overview with providing a little bit of the broader outlook towards 2050. We talked about the Fit for 55 targets. These are clear, they are set in legislations. They are not just decarbonization targets, they have to do with energy efficiency, renewables, and so on. But at the same time, we have the EU-wide legally binding target for climate neutrality, net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So in addition to what we have done for governmental authorities for 2030, we performed a detailed study, again, you can find the link on the slides, to support the country in preparing its updated long-term strategy for essentially for 2050. It is not yet approved, but it is our study, and you can find it, and it outlines also main macroeconomic challenges and opportunities. We started from the revised National Energy and Climate Plan, so in order to be fully consistent with the official policies, and we went up to 2050. We simulated a central climate neutrality scenario with different sensitivity cases and outlined the fiscal and the macroeconomic uncertainties and challenges which are now we are discussing now with officers from the finance ministry, but also with economic experts abroad. Very similarly to what, for example, the French and the UK government has done. These are just some links. These are just stimulations for further reading. There is some more information on the slides, but much more information on our net zero study that is available online. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Zachariadis. You have touched on lots of the issues that we'll discuss later: raw materials, storage, local industry, cement. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. And going from the Vice Chair of the Scientific Committee of the European Environmental Agency, Professor Zachariadis, I have the honor to have with us the Energy Storage Coordinator of the Joint Program of the European Energy Research Alliance on energy storage, Dr. Miriam El-Bartaji. Miriam, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Can you please share your presentation?
I will try. Can you see my presentation? Can you see my presentation?
Not yet, Miriam. Please give us a second. Miriam, please give us 1 minute more so we can call our colleague to display their presentation, because unfortunately we cannot see anything yet. So if you could kindly please wait for a minute, it would be really nice.
Otherwise, we can try again to share the presentation.
Unfortunately not. I think he's just working on it. So okay, so much better. Now we can see you and hear you. Yeah, thanks for waiting. So the stage is yours.
So you can see the presentation, right?
Yeah, we can.
My own presentation. I should go through it, right?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. So, Kalimera, thank you very much for inviting me to this important event. My name is Miriam Gil-Balaji. I come from Spain, but I currently work and live and work at KIT in Germany, leading an European research program on energy storage that I will have the pleasure to present to you today. So, here the content of this presentation, just for you to have an overview. First of all, I would like to mention a little bit on energy storage, and then I will present you the joint program on energy storage, as well as 2 European projects that we are coordinating, Rise Energy and Storage. So, as I have said, first, let me start talking about energy storage, because one of the most urgent challenges of the European energy system today, I would say, is to minimize curtailment and to maximize renewable utilization and integration. And energy storage is one of the main pillars to achieve a sustainable energy system, not only for electricity, but also for heat and other energy vectors that are required, because they are the only possibility to integrate renewable energy, such as solar, wind, or ocean energy, in a system-safe way into the energy system. And renewable energies are very important, but as you know, they are not available by demand, which means with a good energy storage system, we are not going to solve the problems of sustainability. But we need to think that the future energy system will be much more decentralized, disaggregated, and multi-vector. Therefore, it's important to mention that there is no a single silver bullet solution, a magic technology that will solve all the problems. So instead, we will need a combination of different storage technologies, and this is what we call hybridization for energy storage, because hybrid storage technologies provide the opportunity to benefit from advantages and at the same time to compensate the drawbacks of the single storage technologies alone. And this is very important, and this is where the future energy system will go. So, and here is where the ERA Joint Program on Energy Storage comes in. You can see here the program is composed of more than 40 members from 15 different countries across Europe, dedicated to low carbon technology research, working together on energy storage for more than 10 years. Nevertheless, one of the biggest challenges to achieve a clean energy transition by 2050 remains long-term storage, which means we don't know how to save the energy for the winter, because so far we have been using fossil fuels, and this has to change if we want to decarbonize Europe by 2050, right? So here you can see the structure of this joint program. It is composed of different sub-programs. It's really technological oriented, as you can see. I don't want to go very much into the technical data, but depending on the storage principle, we have different storage areas, from electrochemical, like batteries, chemical, power to X, hydrogen, thermal, heat storage, mechanical, like pumped hydro, liquid air storage, compressed air storage, or superconducting magnetic energy storage, like superconductors for the grid. We have these different sub-programs, and on top of that, we have a last sub-program dedicated to the techno-economic and sustainability aspects of the different storage technologies. So what is the mission of our young program? First is to develop common research and coordinate the scientific community in Europe. Second, to establish a dialogue at European level among all stakeholders involved in energy storage. Third, to facilitate knowledge transfer by communication with industry and stakeholders, and that is very important to know the needs of the industry in order to go in the right direction for the research. Fourth, to advise policymakers by identification of regulatory barriers, for example, and providing policy recommendations by writing technology roadmaps, for instance. Five, also very important to support young scientists in the field of energy storage, because we have a lack of people and we need more people doing research, otherwise we will not be able to develop the technologies that we need. And last but not least, to establish best practices by developing new technologies and pave the way to the market introduction. How we do that? So to realize this mission, we have established different activities. I have mentioned some of them before, like technology roadmaps, technology fact sheets, studies for the European Commission. We also write joint applications for European projects where we can perform the research. We organized many workshops and events with policy makers, stakeholders, industry, also end users like citizens, because it's very important to inform all the people about the different technologies and to have the acceptance of the citizens. We have a mobility scheme for exchange the researchers between the different members. We have online PhD days, which is a kind of seminar for PhD students. We award a joint program, we grant a joint program award also to support the activities of the young scientists, and we have many other dissemination activities. So let me show you some of these activities. For example, report. In year 2013, we wrote a technology roadmap together with IS, which is the European Association for Storage of Energy, so the industry on energy storage in Europe. And then we realized that many things changed, so we need an update. So some 4 years later, we wrote a new update on this technology roadmap, also delivering 6 recommendations for research and development policies and regulatory development in Europe. 1 year later, also the Commission contacted us for the preparation of the actual framework program Horizon Europe, and they asked us to write a study to speed up the energy transition on energy storage, which we also performed. Now we are working on hybrid energy storage, as I have mentioned before, because this is very important. And we plan to write a book on that, on the different energy storage technologies and the possible combinations. So, by using our synergies and our network in the joint program, we have written different proposals for European projects in the frame of Horizon 2020 and later on in Horizon Europe. The first one was granted or is already finished from 2016 to 2019. It was called SMILE, and it was dealing with the smart integration of energy storage in local multi-energy system for maximizing the share of renewables in Europe's energy mix. Later on, we started the storage project dealing with hybridization of the different energy storage technologies, and now we have just granted Rise Energy, which is one step forward, not only for energy storage, but also the combination of the different renewable energies. And here you can see, so from the joint program energy storage covering the 5 different energy storage areas, we decided to use our expertise to find suitable solutions by combining them. And this is, again, hybridization of energy storage, very important. And this is what we are actually doing in the storage project right now. But we still need to go one step forward. We need to integrate this storage solution into the future energy system. And for this, we have Rise Energy, which is covering all renewable energy technologies from energy production to storage up to integration in the grid. And the project is about to start. We have just signed the grant agreement some days ago, which is very interesting. And Proteas and Cyprus Institute is participated in both of these projects as research infrastructure providers, which means researchers from all Europe can come and visit your installation in order to accelerate the development of the storage technology. So I like to mention that one of the main outcomes of the storage project will be the delivery of a technology roadmap and a strategic research and innovation agenda for hybridization of energy storage. And the purpose of this is first to establish the set of needs for energy storage in different applications, stationary and mobile, and at different scale levels. And second, to identify hybrid solutions between different types of energy storage. As I have mentioned before, electrochemical, chemical, mechanical, and thermal. And we have identified 5 different categories of applications where current energy storage technologies fail short. For example, industrial generation, which is really important. The second one is off-grid and energy islands. Third one is the grid transmission and distribution. Both of them, as mentioned before by Professor Zakariadis, have experienced already delays in the development. We will also deal with a smart solution for mobility and transport. In this meant not only electric vehicles, but also charging stations, and finally smart buildings. And if you have a look at this list, you can realize that the second case will be very important for Cyprus because you have the issue that you are not connected to the European grid, right? So we will to develop or provide solutions that can help you to overcome the energy storage problems that you might experience there. So just to finalize, to achieve a successful energy storage transition, we will need the combination of all sectors, transport, electricity and heat. We need the integration, for sure, of all levels of energy use in terms of end users as well as industry. And last but not least, we need the establishment of a circular economy to reduce our dependency on critical raw materials, which is very, very important. And in my opinion, all this will be only possible through the interplay and combination of the different energy storage technologies. So thank you very much for your attention. I would like also to thank to all my colleagues at KRT, and if you have any question or any comment, I am very pleased to answer you, or you can contact us. You will find all the information there in the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you for mentioning things that we're going to look later on, and especially the isolation of Cyprus, the seasonal storage, and the hybridization, which are coming later into the agenda as well. So, I would like to invite also now to our online participant, Dr. Diego Martinez, which is the Managing Director of the EU Solaris, that is the European Research Infrastructure Consortium, to talk about the EU Solaris. Diego, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will share my screen now. Yes. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Can you see it?
Yeah, Diego. Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you to the organization for giving me the chance to present EU Solaris Area, which is a newborn initiative which for sure will strengthen the already existing cooperation between Cyprus and Spain. So EU Solaris is an ERIC, it's a European Research Infrastructure Consortium, and is focused on concentrating solar thermal technologies. First of all, I would like to introduce the ESPRI, which is the European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructures. This is a forum formed by the EU member states and the European Commission since the year 2002 to coordinate a common strategy on scientific facilities and research infrastructures. The goal is to establish a roadmap of research infrastructures that can be considered within strategic areas like energy, like of unique nature and which are identified by the European scientific community as top-notch and of the highest interest for Europe. Within this catalog or roadmap, there are two categories, which are the projects, which are new entrants initiatives, and landmark, which correspond to projects which are already in operation, giving the outcome to the scientific community. This is just to give you a very brief idea of which facilities, which research infrastructures are in the energy chapter. Only 5. Among them is EU Solaris, which has already the category of landmark, because we are already in operation many years ago. And we have, you can see here that the total amount of facilities is 63, and most of them has to do with health and food or physical sciences and engineering. Here is where all the large accelerators and telescopes are included. So, why do we need an ERIC? An ERIC is a legal figure created specifically by the European Commission to assist those consortiums, those consortia, which are willing to build a large multinational research infrastructure. Imagine the bureaucratic complexity of building such a huge infrastructure with people from different countries, administrative systems from different countries, money transfer from different countries. So the European Commission got conscious of that and created this figure in the year 2009. So the advantages of being an ERIC is that it has full legal capacity recognized in all EU countries. There are exemptions from VAT and excise duty. There is some degree of flexibility to adapt to the specific requirements of each infrastructure project. It's a faster process than creating an international organization, and you may adopt your own procurement procedures, respecting some basic principles: transparency, non-discrimination, and competition. On the other hand, you have to meet some requirements to be sealed as an ERIC. It must be a European joint venture, which means that most of the members has to be European member states. Though under certain conditions, associated countries and non-EU countries can become members also. It is very important to commit to provide access to external users. This is something which has to be in the DNA of the new research infrastructure. You have this commitment to offer access to this new infrastructure. You have also to promote the mobility of knowledge and of researchers between the ERA, the European Research Area, and also you have to commit to promote the dissemination and optimization of the results. So, talking about our ERIC, it's a relatively young ERIC. It was born last January, though it has been a very long process due to bureaucratic difficulties, which was initiated in 2010. So the founding members are Cyprus, Spain, France and Germany, and Portugal is also an observer. We have, you can see in this map, countries which have been participating from the very beginning, back in 2010, but that for different reasons, mostly bureaucratic reasons, they didn't make it yet to join. Maybe the closest countries so far are Italy, Greece and Turkey to join in the coming years. And in yellow color you can see other countries that have CSP activity, solar thermal activity, but maybe in 5 years or so could eventually join. The host, the seat is in Spain, here in Plataforma Solar de Almería, from where I am talking to you today, and is led by CMAT and our Ministry of Science and Innovation, and as I said, the legal form is ERIC. So it has been a long process since 2010, when it was included in the S3 roadmap for the first time as a project. Remember, there were two categories. Project is the entrant category. We also received funding from the European Commission for the preparatory phase, which is a phase where you, consolidate your consortium, develop a number of documentation which is important, the statutes, the technical description, the rules for how to operate. And well, this was a very generous contribution from the European Commission. At that time, the project was led by a regional entity, the Andalusian Regional Renewable Energy Institute. And when the preparatory phase ended, there was a problem with this institute, which unfortunately vanished. And then there was an interim period until CIEMAT and the national government of Spain took the leadership and pushed again the process. So happily, at the beginning of 2023, as we can see in the picture, in CIEMAT, we signed, we settled the General Assembly, which is the leading institution, the ruling institution. As I said, the General Assembly is the sovereign body. There is a central hub here in Almeria with the managing director, which is myself, plus some staff to assist. There is an external scientific and technical committee of renowned scientists in the field, which give us a hand in evaluating proposals and also giving advice on what we are planning to do. And there is also a board of national nodes, which is an entity composed by, let's say, national associations, where all the institutes with outstanding activity in CSP join to participate also in EU Solaris through these nodes. So, why EU Solaris? What are the main goals? What do we want to do with this? Well, first of all, we want to be the reference in Europe with regard to CST research infrastructures. We also want to coordinate ourselves as a single infrastructure of distributed nature to advance in the integration of the existing facilities, both identifying the requirements for the improvement and for the eventual development of new ones, coordinate the dissemination of results, good practices and standardization of protocols, just to keep the European leadership, and to promote collaborative research, as usual, but in a more organized way. We define our activities in two categories. Let's say the core activities, sorry. Remember, as I said before, we need to have a single entry point for anyone willing to get access, to be granted access to our research infrastructures. So we have a website. Any interested research team can get there and ask for to be granted for access. We want to work together on standardization of common testing protocols and procedures for our facilities, deliver sectorial inputs to the European Commission or to any political body willing to hear our opinion, promote mobility and status change, submit joint applications for new R&D projects. I want to stress here the point that though we are a JAUM institute, we already got 3 projects out of 5 proposals. One of them is Rise Energy, which has been explained by Ms. Hill of the joint program ERA. To optimize similar existing research facilities to avoid duplication, and we also plan to build e-infrastructure to share data to the community. Now, these are things that we would like to do once we get enough resources to do that. It's kind of wish list that maybe in the coming years will be possible to afford. And just to finish, just some key messages to take away. This is one step more in the cooperation between Spain and Cyprus in the solar thermal field. This is a long-lasting cooperation because we have been partnered in many projects in the past years. Actually, there has been an intense exchange of scientific stuff between both countries. And EU Solaris will definitely give a boost to this cooperation. Just to remember that EU Solaris ERIC is not a project with a limited lifespan. It's a consortium, a long-lasting consortium, under a very specific European legislation. The member are countries, so Spain and Cyprus are countries, not only CMAT and CYI, though they are the leading institutes per country. It's a legal entity, can apply to Horizon Europe call, with already some success in this activity. And it's about research infrastructures, focused on internal coordination, delivery of services, delivery of access, policy making, etc., etc. And we all who sit around the General Assembly table, we all believe that there are much more to come. And that's all from our side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diego, and thank you for the long-lasting collaboration between our countries and our organizations, as you already mentioned. So, for this session, I would like us to have a last call, my colleague, Dr. Nestor Phylaktos, who will actually talk about the challenges of the energy transition for the isolated island energy systems. So, Nestor, the floor is yours.
I assure you this is not my presentation. This is the one. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Nestor Phylaktos. I'm a research scientist here at the Cyprus Institute. Embajador, thank you very much for coming. The good thing about these presentations when they are done after some speakers before me is that I don't really have to do any introductions because most of the main issues have already been identified and in quite some detail. I will be talking about what we do here at this institute in order to address not all, but most of the issues that you have heard this morning. Briefly, we are conducting energy research at the Cyprus Institute, embedded into a center called Energy, Environment and Water. It's called EWRC, together with the other centers of the Institute. The organizational structure is not very important, but the center itself works on renewable energy, energy use and water efficiency, managing natural resources, generally the low carbon economy. So you see that we're actually doing research on energy and water. We consider those to be more or less embedded issues that we have to tackle together. Why to do that? Why study energy issues? We have been doing that for quite some time now. Energy was was the main focus of the EWRC as the first center at the Cyprus Institute, which started in 2007, a long time ago. This is actually a picture of the main power plant in Cyprus, the Vasiliko power plant, which is producing almost half of the electricity we need. But we are in a region which is a climate hotspot. The effects of climate change here are more pronounced, more acute than the rest of the world, in terms of temperature at least, and lack of precipitation. And as it has already been detailed beautifully by the previous speakers, we are an isolated energy system in a semi-arid climate. So we squarely fall into the category that the presenter before the last showed about off-grid systems. And we face the following challenges. We have high prices of energy, both electricity and transportation. We are dominated by fossil fuels. We have a compromised ability to absorb renewable energy resources, as Professor Zaharia has already said, and we have a heavy reliance on desalination. So this is the spirit under which we conduct energy research, and this is what we do to answer these questions. So we develop, first of all, renewable energy technologies and energy storage. This is mostly concentrated solar thermal systems. for which we are members of several organizations and do several projects. EU Solaris is one of them, that you heard Diego speak about that earlier. We do renewable energy polygeneration systems, which means that we have many different renewables connected together in a unified system, which we call the microgrid, which will be, we think, the model of the energy systems of the future. We study and develop multi-storage energy systems. That's very crucial for the energy transition, especially for places like Cyprus. We do green power thermal desalination and brine management, which addresses the issue of a heavy reliance on desalination. We also do technological issues of, we look into issues of smart control, monitoring, and SCADA systems. We work on smart microgrids, as I said, and we also develop scientific software, modeling, and design. This is, on the technological side of energy research, a wide array of activities where we embed ourselves into answering the challenges of the energy transition. And all this is connected also to the market. So we do a lot of work on connecting what we do here to innovative products that will eventually see the light of day applied in real energy systems. All this is underpinned by what we have at Proteas, which is the flagship research infrastructure we have at the Cyprus Institute, which is headed by Marios Georgiou, which is basically the host of this event, where we have these different energy systems. We have a wind power system, lots of PV, a solar Stirling dish, which, by the way, is from a Czech company that we host at Proteas, and a large solar power tower system. All of them are, these are the actual numbers, 50 heliostats, 36 kilowatts, 10 kilowatts wind turbine, and solar Stirling dishes. These are connected to a multi-storage energy system, which we said we consider to be crucial. And this is a lot of molten salt storage. So we store energy in thermal means, in a large tank in thermal energy, but also connect that to battery storage, thermochemical. So we basically have a system of hybrid energy storage, like the one discussed earlier, where we think that we see that short-term energy storage will be addressed by batteries, but longer term and stability to the grid cannot be addressed by this issue. We have to rely on something else. And in our case, this is, we consider thermal energy storage to be the answer. And at the end of that, we produce electricity through a power block. And we have potential end uses in heating and cooling, industrial process heat, and desalinated water, as we said. All this into a research experimental infrastructure which is close to Limassol. These are the technologies for the end users. This is an example of how we address this issue, how we see that. This is the demand for electricity in 5 days in April. This is real data from 2022. And this is actually data that we have collected at the Proteas facility from our PV systems over there. As you can see, there's a bit of a phase difference between how much electricity demand there is and when we're actually producing PV, which has to do with, obviously, with the position of the sun in the sky. And this is also production from a wind facility. So we have all these systems at Proteas, and if you combine those, you will see that this is the heart of the argument, that we are too many renewables. We can address overall in terms of accounting the energy issue, but if you take that in consideration that during the night we cannot really produce anything, then you see that there are issues of when we are producing and when we are consuming. And we need to bridge that gap. And we do that by all the systems that I showed you earlier. So here's basically an illustration of how we see the energy system of the future, which will be fossil fuel free, but also be able to provide baseload electricity, which means electricity 24/7 without having any emissions. This is the type of research that we do there. This is actually the facility itself, where I showed you earlier, with all its different subsystems. You can see here, these are the heliostats and the power tower. These are the solar dishes that I talked about earlier. This is an array of photovoltaics. This is a PV turbine. This is control systems. All these combined into one unified system. Beyond that, we also do a lot of, let's say, research on lower TRL systems, which starts from TRL 1, that goes all the way to TRL 4 to 5, which is basic research here. So we develop new technologies to be applied in energy systems of the future, in receivers, heliostats, but also community industrial design. And we have patents for those technologies which were applied for a future embedment of these technologies into the commercial sphere. It was also mentioned that one of the challenges is the decarbonization of industry. Here we have, and this is some data about industrial energy demand and how much this is responsible for emissions, and how systems like the ones that we are developing here can actually assist with that. And this is actually a different research infrastructure that we have here, actually, at the top of this building, which is built and designed especially for that. This is providing heating and cooling to this building that we are now, but also is designed to provide process industrial heat for industries that require heat in the range between 100 and about 300 degrees, which is quite a large segment of the industrial demand in Europe right now. So you see that we have technology that try to address a very large array of all these issues. And this is more or less how it works. Now, before closing, I'd like to say that we don't only work on technologies, but we also work on energy embedded into sustainable built environment. And these are some examples of climate change mitigation and adaptation, community-driven urban transformation, zero emissions buildings and neighborhoods, occupant-centric buildings and designs, and data-driven immersive built environments. So we care about and we study how energy is used in buildings and what we can do to reduce the energy demand, but also make the living environment, the built environment, something a lot more palatable for people living in it. And of course, we have the section of techno-economics, climate, and policy design support, which Professor Chariadis talked about in great detail, in great length earlier on. So we do model of energy systems in using models, techno-economic assessments, and also policy support. So in a nutshell, this is what we do in energy research at the Cyprus Institute. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Nestora, and thank you for not taking too much time for our coffee break. So, having said that, I invite everyone outside for a short coffee break, and then we will be back at 11:30 to continue with actual applied case studies here in Cyprus, demonstrate some new projects, and have a really enlightening discussion on how all these that have been presented so far can be actually adapted. Thank you.
Nice to be here. Thanks for this invitation, this opportunity. So I'm going to speak about this project that for the establishment of the bicommunal solar power plant in Cyprus. As mentioned, the idea actually has been discussed, introduced for probably at least 10 years. And actually the Cyprus Institute was probably the first or one of the first organizations to propose and think about it. Clearly, it took a lot of time to be put into motion. And finally, after negotiation with both communities and other stakeholders, it was decided to try to implement it. The idea is to establish, as mentioned, become a solar power plant in Cyprus, possibly in the buffer zone. The idea is to have an indicative capacity of 30, 50 megawatts, so something that is relevant, clearly cannot solve all the energy problems in Cyprus, but the contribution could be real. And the idea is to have an energy storage, clearly to make the energy dispatchable, but also to meet other needs, including the increase of the renewable energy in energy mix, considering the current challenges that the grid in Cyprus is facing. First step, clearly pre-feasibility study, to understand the feasibility, and also because, probably as you just speaking about a bicommunal solar power plant with energy storage in the buffer zone, we are already mentioning a lot of challenges. At a certain moment, we decided to put an indicative budget that is in the order of 50 million euro. So the idea of the pre-feasibility study is to identify the technological solutions that can be deployed, and especially the locations where a power plant can be located. The outcome is to facilitate a discussion, a political discussion, in order to take a well-informed decision. So giving technical inputs in order to allow the decision makers to move forward in a well-informed way. Clearly, the study has to consider the local conditions. And local conditions, I mean the grid. So we have two electricity grids that are at the current moment, they are connected and synchronized, but they are two. They have different operators in the Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot community. You have different market conditions. You have to consider, speaking about the buffer zone, you have to consider potential locations, including the ownership of the land, plus how to connect this power plant to the grid. So how to bring the electricity to the grid, and then how to share it. So then you speak also about an understanding, a sort of agreement, how the electricity can be shared in order to meet the needs of both communities without creating further, let's say, discussions or problems or complications. The project is funded by the European Commission, but implemented by UNDP. So UNDP is the one actually signing the contract. And actually, they contracted Fichtner, that is a well-known international company with previous experience in Cyprus in the sector. Then, very importantly, both communities appointed 2 energy experts each to support this project. And this is very important to build trust on the process and finally on the result of the pre-feasibility study, or the findings of the pre-feasibility study. So the duration is expected to be 7 months. So far, we are on track. So we expect to have the final report submitted to, let's say, to the clients, so to the NDP and then the European Commission by the end of January 2024. Clearly, stakeholder consultation is very important. Started with consulting different stakeholders at the individual level, starting from the foundation system operator, DSO, SERA, in the Greek Cypriot community, as well as KIPTEC, that is the grid operator in the northern part of Cyprus. And this is to collect data, to also validate the understanding, the challenges, and also get some technical indications about possible solutions. We had meetings and workshops with the energy experts, again, to validate the fundings, to be sure of having a common understanding of the situation, and especially the next step will be to validate the technical solutions proposed by the service provider. Finally, we had continuous meetings and communication with the negotiating teams of both communities. This is clearly was required at the beginning to agree on the pre-feasibility study, but also to keep them updated on the process in order then, once the, let's say, pre-feasibility study is finalized, to be able to proceed with the next step quite quickly. So the technology, based on all the considerations, the service provider suggested to have a power plant with a generation and storage capacity. So the generation, we're speaking about 36 megawatts with PV panels, while storage, BESS, so battery energy storage system, with a capacity of about 90 megawatts hour AC output. So practically speaking, a base load of 30 megawatts for a 3-hour period, sort of. So the benefits of this kind of technology clearly is a well-established technology, quite reliable, convenient, already deployed in several countries. A lot of others are building such a kind of facility. And one of the reasons is also due to the high flexibility of the system, particularly due to the energy storage side. In particular, this can meet the specific needs of both communities. The Greek Cypriot community declared to have an issue. They need some help to ease the evening ramp up. So we're speaking about a period of about 4 hours. The critical one is 2 hours. So in this way, this facility can help in that period. So after the sunset, when the PV systems, of course, they go down, and they have to switch on the night generators. So in this way, it can help in that moment, help also in reducing the instability in that moment. While the Turkish Cypriot community need to have an increased capacity. That's in general, but then specifically in specific moments. As mentioned, this solution should meet the needs of both communities, but clearly a sort of understanding is needed in case of conflicting needs to have a clear way forward without creating problems. As far as we know, there is a similar plant in the University of Cyprus, but it's more at the demonstrative level, let's say. The capacity is much smaller. So this one supposedly will be the first of this kind in Cyprus. Also because, for example, for BESS, so for the energy storage, the Republic of Cyprus is still working on setting some technical specifications and so on. So right now, private investors cannot, they're interested, but they cannot yet deploy similar facilities. So this can be also sort of forerunner facility. So we can consider it also innovative in the context of Cyprus. Moving from the technological solution to something more practical, the big question is where to locate it. So as mentioned, the buffer zone is the area that we all thought about, but the problem is to find the space. Find the space in the buffer zone in order to install it and to connect it to the grids in an effective way. So the service provider proposed 2 options. Clearly, I cannot disclose the name of the locations currently under consideration, but the first option is to have 2 small parallel facilities. Totally, they will have the capacity that we mentioned, so 35 megawatts. In this way, there will be no need to acquire private land, and the connection could be done at the medium voltage. And this will lead to use a public road for connection and to simplify the process. The other option is to have a unique facility in just one place, again, without private land, but in this case, the connection should be at the high voltage, requiring the dedicated infrastructure, and the connection should pass through some private lands. That means right away. Possible, happened already before, but of course it's a longer process. These options are currently under investigation, and then of course everything will be presented to the negotiating team, and they will take a political decision based on the technological inputs. Unfortunately, no other locations were identified meeting all these requirements. So just also to mention how challenging this assignment is. So now we are at the final step, let's say, of this process. So we are still working and consulting with all the parties. We are waiting for some feedback, especially regarding perceived obstacles and risk. And especially, we are working closely with the energy expert for the validations of the solutions. Practically speaking, we are waiting for some more detailed information and data in order to validate the solutions proposed. And especially, based on feedback that we receive, we can also ask the service provider to investigate or give more details about specific aspects. This will build the confidence required to move to the next step. The idea is clearly, if the study is accepted, well accepted by both communities, and they find an agreement on the way forward, we can move to the next step that will be, let's say, move to a design and possibly build this facility in the coming few years. So as mentioned, the deadline right now is the submission of the final report that should happen at the end of 2023, and hopefully to have an official decision soon after. So let me just leave you with this statement from our commissioner, the Commissioner of DG Reform, Elisa Ferreira. So Cypriots in both communities must be drivers of reunification, finding ways to build trust and joint solutions to the island's challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. I will move forward to the next presentation because I know if I give 5 minutes, you'll get at least 1 million questions. And I have lots of them as well. So then I think the easiest way for you would be for me to go to the next presentation. But I do hope that after what will be presented, what has been presented will be presented later on, you will see our approach and how several different approaches could play a role in this project. So with no further delay, I would like to call to the podium Mr. Marina Tsangaridou. She's the energy manager of the Vasiliko cement plant, and she's going to talk about how actually they're trying to reduce the carbon footprint of the Vasiliko cement plant. Given Professor Zachariadis' talk before, I think this would be a really interesting topic, and this will help us for the discussion later on. The floor is yours.
So, good morning. My name is Marina. I'm the energy manager of the Vasiliko Cement Works, the only cement factory in Cyprus. Vasiliko Cement Factory was established in 1963 and is the largest heavy industry in Cyprus, and also the biggest consumer of electrical energy. Since the merger with the Cyprus Cement Company in 2008, we have also been an export industry with destinations throughout the Mediterranean. So before we continue, it's important to understand the cement production process. This process can be divided into three basic steps: curing of raw materials and production of clinker and cement. Raw materials, mainly limestone and clay, are cured, crushed, ground, and then stored to silos. Then the clinker production process begins, which is the most energy-intensive process, and it operates 24/7, except maintenance periods. Ground raw materials, the so-called farine, are fed into huge cylindrical kilns and heated to about 1,450 degrees Celsius. This process is called calcination, and it splits the material into calcium oxide and CO2. A new substance called clinker emerges as marble-sized gray balls. The clinker then is rapidly cooled to a temperature of about 200 degrees Celsius and stored. The final step is the production of cement. The clinker is ground, mostly with gypsum and some other materials, to vertical or horizontal mills to produce the gray powder known as cement. Clinker and cement are both considered final products for our company because we either export it or locally use them. In Europe, there are 33 countries with 337 cement plants. The largest production unit is in Cyprus, with a production of 6,000 tons clinker per day. Our installed capacity is more than 40 megawatts, with running load to be approximately 25 to 27 megawatts. Our consumption exceeds 150 million kilowatt hours per year. If we assume an average consumption of a four-person household to be about 5,000 kilowatt hours, our consumption corresponds to 30,000 houses. We also use thermal energy, which is almost 4 times the electrical energy. In terms of cost, though, it's vice versa. We are connected to the local grid through our own GIS substation, gas insulated system, in high voltage, 132 kilovolts. And inside the factory, we are operating on a medium voltage network of 11 kilovolts. We are the only consumer connected in high voltage. We have 30 substations, medium voltage to low voltage, and around 40 transformers from 500 to 40,000 kVA to cover our equipment supply needs. More than 95% of our equipment are motors, which is with the largest one to be the raw mill fan, 6.6 megawatts. So to properly manage and effectively use the energy in the factory, we decided to adopt simple but proven techniques based on our energy management cycle. The first thing we did was to ensure the company's commitment to our path for energy efficiency. The company has decided to adopt an energy policy aimed at continuous reduction of energy use and implementation of the best practices to comply with the legislation. There is a saying from Kelvin, which totally represents the second step of our cycle: if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. That's why you must first have a clear understanding of how you're currently using your energy. This Sankey diagram shows exactly that. The data used are for 2022, but are almost identical every year, except from the percentage of alternative fuels usage, which we are aiming higher each year. Following the understanding comes the planning. We target specific areas. Oops, sorry. We target specific areas with significant energy use and design the action plan. Short, mid, and long-term projects aiming at the improvement of the performance and management control and at the training and informing the personnel. In 2015, we were certified with ISO 50001, the energy management certification. We are the first industry to be certified with a specific ISO. Based on the action plan, we move on to the implementation stage. In the following slides, I will demonstrate some of the main measures we took to make the factory more efficient. From the designing of the new production line back in 2008, we decided to invest in new technologies and advanced equipment. We have chosen to replace the 4 main grinding mills, raw mill, coal mill, and the 2 main cement mills, 5 and 6, from ball mills to vertical mills, saving electrical and thermal energy. In our large loads, we have installed inverters, variable speed drives, which gave us about 30% savings. We have installed 2 voltage optimization systems to different loads in the factory, raw mill air compressors and clinker elevators, saving in total about 50% in our annual consumption. In 2014, we launched the operation of the alternative fuels feeding system. We automatically insert alternative fuels in the production line, saving us with the manpower and the extra cost. And as we mentioned before, the kiln reaches temperatures of about 1,400 degrees Celsius. So it's natural to have some heat wasted. A large portion of that wasted heat is used for the preheating and the pre-drying of the materials in the raw mill and the coal mill. We are also studying the possibility to partially recover waste heat to produce electricity through a heat recovery boiler and a turbine system. Depending on the chosen technology, up to 50% of our consumption can be produced without changing the kiln operation. Our main constraints are the investment cost and the efficiency limited by a low temperature level. The last step in our energy management cycle combines the verification of the measures taken and the daily monitoring. One of the most important indicators to measure the efficiency of a cement plant is the energy used to produce a ton of clinker, given as EPI, Energy Performance Indicator. Our EPI is among the 10 best performance after comparison of 300 factories by specialized house. Furthermore, each year, one of the main goals set by top management is to achieve the maximum substitution of conventional fuels with alternatives, without, of course, affecting the final product's quality. From 2019 and on, we managed to achieve more than 50% substitution. So moving forward to meet our goals, we face 2 main difficulties related to production costs and CO2 emissions. Electricity has consistently accounted for the largest share of our variable production cost. So you can imagine how the continuous increase in the price of electricity causes problems for the company, both in our domestic sales and in our exports. According to International Energy Agency, in 2022, world cement production generated CO2 equivalent to 7% of the global emissions. More than half of that is coming from the calcination process. This is the principal reason why cement emissions are often considered difficult to be avoided. Since this CO2 is released by a chemical reaction, it cannot be eliminated by changing fuel or increasing efficiency. Together with thermal combustion, 90% of the sector's emissions could be attributed to the production of clinker. So in our part to greener practices, and basically to compensate partially our production cost, we have installed a photovoltaic power of 80 megawatt installed power, which is one of the largest parks operating right now in Cyprus. Until last month, we were the only one, but I think EAC's Akrotiri PV park started operation in October. From this project, we have 4 main benefits. We virtually replace approximately 9% of our annual electricity demand, virtually because we do not self-consume the energy, but we sell it to the market. In terms of cost, we compensate approximately 6%. The area chosen for the park to be installed was an old inactive quarry. So considering also the permits for a quarry, the photovoltaic park can be considered as an upgrade of the area. We contributed to the achievement of Cyprus 2020 national targets by 3%. And the 8 megawatt PV park contributes to the reduction of CO2 emissions by preventing the emission of about 10,000 tons each year. Currently, we are in the process of licensing another 80 megawatt photovoltaic park in the same area, in the white park of the photo. Additionally, since the installation of the new clinker production line, we began to use alternative fuels in our fuel mix. In 2022, we replaced 65% of our conventional fuels, one of the highest percentages of alternative fuels usage in Europe. This, of course, has had as a result the decrease of CO2 in our final product. The main alternative fuels we are using are RDF, refused and derived fuel, chopped tires, bone meal, and sludge. Finally, going a little further into the future, we can divide the actions expected to be taken by the industry into 3 categories, depending on when are expected to be adopted. In near-term actions, improving the energy efficiency of cement production is a critical aspect for emission reduction. By employing advanced technologies, optimizing processes, and investing in modern equipment, cement plants can minimize energy consumption and in turn reduce their carbon footprint. These energy-saving initiatives not only benefit the environment, but also contribute to cost savings, making sustainability a win-win proposition for the industry. The increased use of renewable energy and alternative fuels can be considered as a must action for the cement plants. In addition to that, the management of silos and production capabilities could then be utilized as like a battery and, for example, make optimal use of excess renewable energy. Moving on to midterm actions, we fund the adoption of alternative raw materials and the clinker substitution on the total cement blend. By replacing a portion of traditional limestone with supplementary materials like fly ash and slag, the carbon emissions from cement production can be reduced significantly. These materials, which are byproducts of other industrial processes, not only lower the overall carbon footprint, but also reduce waste and enhance the strength and durability of the concrete. Finally, in the pursuit of long-term solutions, the cement industry must also turn to carbon capture and storage technology. That involves capturing CO2 emissions from cement plants before they are released into the atmosphere, and then reuse or safe long-term store them underground. While still in the early stages of implementation, this technology has shown great promise in reducing carbon emissions from cement production and other industrial processes. Thank you. That's all from me. And if you have any questions, I would like.
Thank you. I suppose the question that everyone has is, what's the electricity price that you're paying every month? What's the electricity bill? But I'm not going to ask the question. But it's good to see that.
And if you want to know, it's 6 million euros per month.
Okay. I need a break and then we can continue in a few minutes. Okay. Interesting. So maybe some of the discussions today could help to get some ideas on how to save some of or invest some of these 6 millions in maybe in greener ways. So the next speaker is me, but it will be more like a transition before the panel. So despite the fact that I will talk about production and storage of green energy, the main things that I would like to actually touch on is the electricity production, the storage, and the industrial needs. So we have here several colleagues from industry, and I suppose what they want to know, what we can offer, and what we have to show them. So Nestor, you showed a slot from last April. I will show a slot from the last 2 days. So this is a screenshot I made last night from the Electricity Authority of Cyprus showing how much renewable, mainly photovoltaic energy, was produced, what was the demand, and what was actually the fossil fuels. So you can see that was 29th of November, and that was yesterday. And if I have to say what I personally see there, I see two issues. First of all is that we need more electricity to be produced, and the second one is that even if we keep on putting photovoltaics, and with the current wind potential that we have in Cyprus, this whole thing over there won't stop. And the way to do it is by energy storage. So we have to put more renewables to meet the demand curve, and there is obviously not production in the afternoon, where there is a second peak. And this is November. In summer, you can understand that there are two peaks because more tourists, air conditions, and this is actually in November. I also took from the SERA this plot that shows basically what was the historical data about the annual installed capacity of renewable energy sources since 2005. So you can see 2010, and here we are today. So if I have to make some short and fast conclusion, is that there is a constant, obviously, wind capacity installed for the last 10 years or so, while in parallel, I don't know what's the number, but obviously starting for this small, going up to this thing, it's a huge times up what is being actually produced from solar. What's the takeaway message? There is high solar potential in Cyprus, and we should take advantage of it. And where is Cyprus? When you talk about solar potential, everyone thinks PV, and when they think PV, they think batteries. So this is also the deployment of energy storage in Europe, starting from 2016 up to last year. It's obviously that battery installations have actually been dramatically increased in the last 5 years, and the projections about how the thing will go until 2030 are much more scary. I mean, electrification, you already mentioned it, so you can actually understand what's going to happen. Why is this quite of so much interest? Because, Theodore, I didn't know about your slide, but what is the main issues? First of all, who is providing this to us, and actually how much mining can we do? So obviously these things will come up at the end. We may all think of batteries, that we need batteries and batteries, but in 15 years, these batteries that will come basically from China and Europe, they will all stay in this island, and we will have to do something with all these batteries. So I think we should try to think not only the easy solution and the first approach, but try to think a bit more strategic. So who provides the battery? Can we just keep on running like this forever? So you can see the mining plants that we're going to use. And obviously, batteries have also their issues. Lifetime, cycles, cooling. I assume we're going to burn fossil fuels to cool down the batteries that we're going to use storage from renewables. I don't know, it's going to be a crazy thing. So what I'm saying is that we have to think all about these processes. And given that one of the collaborators here is also from the Karamontanis plant, what we do is we examine the option whether we could actually use also seawater in desalination, not only for the water to be actually distilled, but to take the brine and how to create minerals and metals out of it. Because in Cyprus, what we do, we just throw the brine, like everywhere, back to the sea. But this cannot keep on going forever. So that brine has some impacts into the sea, and in parallel, it has some minerals that we could actually take advantage of it. So brine management, mineral mining, renewable desalination. Gabriel is really close, but yeah. So talking about alternative solutions, we're in Cyprus, and yeah, we have photovoltaics and wind, but Marco, maybe using also thermal storage could be an option. What we do molten salt storage. So what we know to do really well is molten salt. And basically what you do is just you heat with the excess electricity, you heat the one tank, it has lots of energy, and then you make steam and you can produce electricity again. It was mentioned from Marina's talk that heat is much cheaper than electricity. Indeed, it's cheaper. That's why we're looking heat as storage medium. And it's not just molten salt, but we are currently, I think I'm allowed it, right? Okay. We are currently with a private company we are developing another concept, which is about the compressed air energy storage. So we are in the process of getting all the licensing and moving things forward to have a pilot proof of concept about 3 to 4 megawatt storage system with compressed air in Cyprus, outside the Proteas facility in Limassol. So the philosophy is more or less described in this schematic, but I assume in the next few weeks or few months, you will have the chance to hear more about this project since things are evolving on a daily basis. And last but not least, we talked about the industrial needs. And Nestor, I guess you stole my slide, but this is what the industry needs. It's 32% of the consumption, and as it's been already mentioned, about 3/4 of it is heat and 26% electricity. So, and when we talk about heat, we talk about several medium of temperatures going from low to medium and to high temperatures. We even heard 1,400. Yeah, CSP. So what the industry needs? It's around 70% is heat, only 9% in this case come from renewable. And what we also have been doing in the Institute, and I'm glad my colleague Alaric is also here, is that we have been recently actually awarded a project in which we will explore how we can actually use photovoltaics and solar thermal to meet the needs of the industry using flexible thermal energy storage, as you can see in the schematic, and producing in parallel electricity, but also heat. So it's a hybridization process between heat and electricity, medium temperature process, and electricity production. The most important part and interesting is that this project also involves local industry. So we have in this consortium Alhambra. Alhambra is actually, it's one of the biggest dairy industries in Cyprus, if not the biggest. And in parallel, in the whole consortium, you can see some big names like Total, Absolicon, and there will be a demo site in Spain about using the same technologies, and we will do 2 replication studies, which one of these will happen here in Cyprus. So you can see that it's not just doing research on it, it's actually been applied and how this is transferred to industry and how big industrial players like Total actually are really interested in investing and doing these projects. And having said about Total, I mean, last month in Spain, it was also inaugurated the Budweiser whole plan about doing renewable beers. So you can see lots and lots of new companies are going towards this direction. So I think this is a point where I would like to call to the podium some colleagues and friends or distinguished guests to have a short discussion on how we feel, what was the lessons learned today, how will we see things going forward, and what's their opinions. So I will start with Professor Nicholas. I mean, you have several hats. I will go for the CEO. No, I will go for the head of the energy department. Okay, so I will use that one. I would also like to ask Anna Maria Haralambous. She's a scientific officer from the Research and Innovation Foundation. Alexandros Stylianidis from the Ministry of Energy. Faros Kalandonis is supposed to be here in a few minutes. He's driving. But also we have with us online Cristobal Vilasante. He's a renewable energy area coordinator from Techniker. So, Cristobal, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And I think we can also see you right now. So that's really nice. I would first ask you to please take your microphones to make sure that they work and we can all hear each other. So could you please test it? Okay, so Cristobal, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. I know that you have been you have a lot of interest in running several projects, mainly about solar thermal and heat. So from today's discussion, first of all, share some insights from Spain and also tell us how do you see things progressing in Spain?
Okay, first of all, Kalimera, good morning to everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this interesting discussion. For me, it's a bit embarrassed, I would say, to give advices to Cyprus, as you are the highest solar thermal energy installer in the world. You have the highest solar thermal energy per capita. So I think that you are in a very good position even to give advice to others. But that's true that for the high temperature, probably Spain is the leader, and we have a long experience in solar thermal, concentrated solar thermal for high temperatures and for electricity production. And in that sense, in Spain, there has been a long tradition for electricity supply. And for storage, I would like to highlight that the solar thermal plants in Spain normally include 7 hours of storage. So we in Spain have like nearly 10 gigawatt hours of storage capacity in our thermal, concentrated solar thermal plants. That is very interesting. And if we move to the industry decarbonization, I think that not only photovoltaics, but solar thermal have an interesting role to play. And now in Spain we are seeing very interesting projects. Probably you have heard about the one in Seville. Heineken is installing, it's now starting to operate a new plant producing 30 megawatt of thermal energy from solar thermal that is now up and running, although we still do not have data on the real figures in these first months of operation. But it's interesting to see how things are moving from pilot plants to real industrial plants, and how also the way to approach to the market is also changing, because what is clear is that what industry needs is energy, and somebody that supplies energy to them, they are not selling energy, they are selling products, and what they need is ways to get this energy green if possible, but very well integrated in the processes. So now there are a number of energy service companies that are starting to provide services, to provide electricity and heat to the industry, green energy, so that the companies can focus on producing products and get the energy that they need.
Thank you. Indeed, I said Budweiser, but it was Heineken. Yeah. So that's my bad. Yeah, that's the one. I had a really nice video as well, but it's okay. So, Professor Nicolas, going to taking the pass from the previous speaker, he said about technologies and about what industry needs. And Nestor before showed a few technologies that it is developed here at the Spanish Institute. How do you see, what role do you see we can play with the developed technologies that we have, and how we can actually support the local industry towards their green transition?
Thank you, Maria. This is a great day. First, I'm sorry that the ambassador just left. Spain is really leading the way, has been leading the way for the last 20 years, I would say, in solar technologies. It's, of course, south, but we even have better solar irradiance than Spain. The previous speaker mentioned something that is not often mentioned. Solar thermal, Cyprus is #1 in the low temperature use of solar thermal. Heating water, Cyprus, by the conventional heaters we see on our roofs, is #1 in the world. 3%, I believe about, is the equivalent energy savings in electricity for other countries. And something that is very interesting, some facts. having a solar thermal heater for water is about equivalent to owning an electric car if the car is powered by renewable electricity. It's not trivial. It's a lot cheaper. Of course, Cyprus has exhausted it because more or less everybody has solar heater. But it's not trivial at all, and we should not forget that. I was amazed, actually, when this factoid came to my attention, that an electric car powered by renewable electricity, which is not the case in Cyprus, has the same impact on the environment as putting a solar heater for water. Okay, where does this get me? Another takeaway message I got today is storage, storage, storage. The technology has evolved now. The production by PVs, for example, is much cheaper than anything else. Installing more PVs, you're wasting money. Because curtailment in Cyprus is about above 20% in the Republic of Cyprus. In the occupied areas, it's about 30%. They have more PVs that they cannot use because they don't have storage, and instead they turn on diesel and they pollute the atmosphere. Today is the beginning of the COP28, and the savings from south and north, the whole island, forget the political boundaries, would have been the equivalent of, back of the envelope calculation I did the other day, 70 million per year. If this electricity by PVs is not, which is not used. You think 6 is a lot, think of that. So why is not used? Because we don't have storage. Second thing to learn from Spain is there is more to storage than batteries. And there is more to electricity production than photovoltaics. Several talks highlighted hybridization, meaning a mixture of technologies. And that's another takeaway message. Finally, your presentation, yes, industrial usage is not driven by electricity, it's by process heat. And everybody can understand that if you are going to use heat, it's not very efficient to produce electricity with the efficiency photovoltaics 10%, to take the electricity to make heat back. It's much a lot easier if you are in a sunbelt country like we are, heat the stuff directly from solar energy. The efficiency there approaches 80%. So 10 versus 80%, one can talk that. So to make the story ahead, these are the takeaway messages from me. Yes, the technologies are mature, as you pointed, and Proteas is an excellent demonstration, not only research, but also demonstration side. It's there, one can go and visit and see the technologies. And we have a big deficit in Cyprus, both at the public and I would say at the government and the industry level, that this is not well understood. That the future is not one technology, it's a basket of technologies. Hybridization is not one use, it's many simultaneous uses, as already we have seen the example of the cement factory. Use the one and cascade it to the other. Polygeneration, use the energy in a cascade. And that's really, as we saw in Nestor's presentation, is exactly the drivers for this. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Well said. I see Cristobal is really happy. So Anna Maria, going to you. Obviously, we have lots of industries here, and one of the things that they are interested is about funding options and funding opportunities. And you have the privilege to be in a working organization that gives the options starting from low TRL up to high TRL and actually boosting the local industry. So could you please say a few things about the program, about what you have seen so far, how engaged is the local industry, and if there are any big success stories that you can share with us.
Thank you for having me here. Yes, indeed, the Research and Innovation Foundation supports research organizations and the industry for projects starting from basic research all the way to experimental development and innovation. We have several programs that are bottom-up, and enterprises can submit proposals from startup level to established enterprises, small to large enterprises. And currently, we have announced very recently the Research in Enterprises program in energy, specifically in energy. This is being funded by the Recovery and Resilient Fund of the Commission. It's under the new chapter of Repower that very recently has Cyprus has secured 100 million more for Repower, for the chapter Repower, and 10 million are for RIF programs. One of the programs is the Research in Enterprises. It has some specific thematic areas that were developed with the Electricity Authority of Cyprus. And it's all about the production, storage, transmission of energy in Cyprus. Some thematic priorities, I must say, are more open. So if there are ideas on how to develop new technologies, etc., in this field, they can also apply. And we will soon launch a co-develop program, again with the Repower EU thematic direction. So this, we will have more information in the next few days. But the co-develop program addresses the cooperation between enterprises and research organizations. So it brings together the two sectors to create new solutions and new technologies. Last year, it was the first time that we announced the thematic call. It was again a co-develop call on green transition, and we funded 10 projects. They are currently under development, implementation. Next year, probably we will have the first results, and then I can share some success stories. But I must say it had a lot of interest from the community. Many proposals were submitted, high-quality proposals. And now, with the next call, it's again an opportunity for this sector.
Okay, thank you. I mean, the code develop was supposed to be my last surprise for the guests, but you already said it. I will find a new one. Going to Alexandros. Alexander, could you please also say a few things about the Ministry of Energy and what are your actions and policies regarding actually promoting the solar energy in Cyprus?
Thank you very much for the organization of this event and the information that we get regarding this very essential sector regarding the further promotion of renewables, which is one of our main priorities. Of course, as we mentioned before, we are the first country in the world using solar thermal heaters for production of hot water. And our vision is to repeat this success in the case of photovoltaics, for the use for the production of electricity. Of course, photovoltaics is not the only solution for the further penetration of RES and the green transition. However, it's one of the most popular and most cost-competitive technology. If you see the previous 10 years, the total installed capacity of PVs was increased from a few 10 megawatts. Now we have around 600 megawatts. And this trend is expected to continue. We have already in operation a support scheme for self-consumption. Is the well-known categories of net metering and net billing. That is a very popular scheme. And this provides the opportunity to every consumer to install a PV to cover all its needs for electricity. And also currently we introduced the option of virtual net metering, net billing. That is in the case that the consumer does not have enough space in his rooftop, like the multi-building apartment, to install the PV in another place, and the production will subtract from his bill. And we try to upgrade the scheme in order to be more favorable to consumers. We also have financial support for households. We have increased grants for vulnerable consumers, and also for consumers in mountains. However, the real challenge is how to manage all these small distributed generation, who are a small isolated energy system, which is the main problem in our further penetration of RES. So we have this urgent need to introduce flexibility into our energy grid. In the meantime, one option is the introduction of storage, as we analyzed before. We examine the operation of two support schemes regarding energy storage, one for a central system that will be under the operation of the distribution system and grid manager, another scheme for the installation of solar storage system in combination with a RES production system. We announced in live a few months ago a draft of the framework of the scheme, and we expect in the next year the scheme to be in operation. Additionally, there is many other measures regarding the promotion, not only the renewables and also the energy saving. There is the scheme for saving and upgrade that is also for not only for households but for industry to get financial support to proceed to investment in their premises to increase the energy efficiency of their building in order to achieve at least 30% reduction of their consumption, or to be a nearly zero energy building. But also this includes the installation of PVs, solar thermal systems, and heat pumps. Additionally, regarding as we mentioned before, the problem with the flexibility of our energy system, very important is the introduction of smart meters and the digitalization of our energy system in order to have a better way to manage all this distributed production. And in the long term is the interconnector that will help us to increase further the penetration of RES.
Thank you. I mean, you have touched on several topics, going from short solutions like the interconnector, which we all know it's going to be, it will take some time if it's going to happen. And I believe you have mentioned it several times about how the ministry is boosting the PV. And I do hope that following to today's presentation and discussion also about raw materials, about how if we keep on putting PVs, we will not be managed to actually solve the problem. I think that I hope the messages will go towards the right directions. Going back to Cristobal, I mean, what do you see the main challenges after several projects, been 18 years in the solar thermal? Where do you see are the main challenges? Are they technological? Are there legislational? Are there subsidy-wise? What do you see being the major challenges so far?
Okay, try to summarize. For me, I think that the first challenge, the first barrier, is that the technology is not known by the end users that have to ask for it. So we see that people start to know about PV technology, but do not know about solar thermal. And I am not against PV, for sure. I think that it is probably the biggest part of the solution, but it cannot solve everything, I think, as you have already put on the table. But the point is that people do not know that there are other alternatives to produce steam and that are well suited for the uses, and especially for industrial uses if you are using concentrated solar power. And nowadays, with the prices of the gas at 40 euros per megawatt, solar thermal technologies are already competitive, and you can save money for sure. One of the problems is that these technologies have a big capex. You have to get money to finance your investment, but after a quite short payback time, you can start to save money. So one problem is how to finance also these investments, to be other point. And I would also like to highlight standardization. I think that PV is quite standardized. It's quite easy to install, easy to operate. When we move to solar thermal, systems are more complex. They have to be designed especially focused to integrate the heat, the steam, the hot air into the process. And we have to make an effort to standardize, to modularize the system so that it can be more plug and play for the users, and easy to operate in an optimum way. And finally, I would say that we start to compete for the space also with photovoltaics. Especially for industry, normally you don't have a lot of space available to install photovoltaics or solar thermal collectors and so on. And you have to decide what to install. And as previously has been suggested, solar thermal is more efficient than PV if you are going to use the energy as heat. So my suggestion would be, let's use the free space close to the factories to produce solar heat, and use other areas that are not so close to the factory to produce PV, and because electricity is much easier to transport to the place where it has to be used.
Thank you. No, it was pretty clear.
A first summary.
Yeah, I think that's our role. First of all, to make sure that we make the technologies easier and educate people, because they have to understand that it seems so complex to be there, but I think actually after several years of experience, it's getting to be like business as usual. First of all, Nicholas, I know that you have to go, so I mean, I'll take the last answer. And which technologies and which industries actually do you see that the technologies related to CST can actually support in Cyprus? So, I mean, it's obviously heat is much cheaper, and we have to go for this. But if you have to tackle, let's say, 3 or 4 main industries, where would you actually would like to go and play this role?
Well, this is a tough one. It can be a very extensive. I'll reverse it. Where is our energy going to be cheap? And then the industry will follow. We don't have a big industrial base anyway. So if we provide cheap energy, the industry will follow. Food industry is a good example. You already mentioned that process heat is, I strongly believe in that, you made the point, process heat can be very inexpensive in Cyprus because of the solar potential. And this requires an industrial policy, that we see that we have the carbon of the future, that solar heat is very, very cheap and reliable in Cyprus. And that's where we should direct the question. Given our potential, what industries will be competitive? Not what industries can be served by the production. So I reverse your question, and then this comes and into planning, and I'm looking at Theodoros, you find what is your advantage and you fit your industrial policy, not the other way around. Finally, before I go, and I have to go because I have to give an interview to a TV station, about photovoltaics. One argument that Spain really promoted tremendously is not discussed in Cyprus at all, is the local content. PVs, I love PVs, they are great. So are batteries. And they will be probably the major part of the mixture. What does it stay in Cyprus? Well, we buy the panels from China, we buy the aluminum frames from Romania or France or China, and what is the local content? Are the workers that are screwing them on the roof. Contrary to what our grandfathers did, they built the heat boilers here. We had an industry. The PV is the worst form. There are extensive studies from Spain, among other countries, about the local content, how much you produce locally. And that's a big advantage of other technologies, primarily solar thermal, not only the heaters on the roof, but the electricity production. According to Spain, and Morocco is a pioneer in imposing that the local content be about 50%. The production, not the installation, the production. CSP technology is very intensive locally to build. If you had a 100 million factory, 50 million will be produced locally. Morocco has done it. Morocco is not Germany. It's a developing economy. And that is not in the discussion. We are happy to buy, and like we used to buy TVs and buy the antennas and install them. It's for a third world country, not for a country that aspires to have a knowledge economy. So that discussion also, I believe, should be in the mixture. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for taking our message. I strongly agree on that. So, Anna Maria, going back to you, I'll take another question, and then maybe if some of the colleagues here have questions, they can also address before we close. I have seen that, several local companies have been, as you said, applying and moving from low to high TRLs. Do you feel like we are doing well? That's the first question. And based on the technology that you have seen today, do you feel like we have more things to do and more funding opportunities from your side to support these technologies?
We always have to be positive, so but I have to say that an impact study has shown that the money that are being invested, they have a good return. So I'm sure this will improve year by year, and the latest investments that have been done will show results in the immediate next years. I think more things should be done, and more opportunities should be created in this field. I forgot to mention before the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. It's a European initiative. It's one of the largest partnerships in this field, and it brings together more than 30 countries of Europe and other countries to collaborate and bring solutions in this field. And Cyprus is participating in this partnership with significant funding, and Cypriot companies and research organizations have the opportunity to collaborate with Spain, for example, or other collaborators in Europe. So more opportunities, I'm sure, are coming up in the next period, and we will see results in the near future.
Thank you. So, Andrea, you said, I know that because we were supposed to have also Fanos Karantonis, but he texts me that he was in the junk coming from Larnaca and it's to traffic. So, Alexander, last question for you as well. So, taking what Professor Nicolas mentioned already, do you think that this type of technologies presented today and taking into consideration things like the local content could actually play a role in the energies, in the Ministry of Energy future perspective about the next to come? Do you see this being actually implemented?
Of course, I agree with the topic. We have to take into consideration in the local community, the local industry, the further promotion of various technologies of renewables. In the case of solar thermal technology, there is always a developed local industry for the production of solar thermal, or have a laboratory, certified laboratory to carry out tests regarding the operation of those systems. However, of course, we have to discuss and examine all the potential in order to introduce a local industry regarding PVs, or the further, or to improve the laboratories, the examination centers regarding the research in the production of photovoltaics, and not to affect of course, I don't believe the further promotion of PVs will affect the installation of solar thermals, because the installation of a solar thermal system, in our case, in household for production of hot water or in hotels, is more effective and cheaper than to cover this energy for PVs. And so in many cases, we have also in many buildings they install a small solar system and PV. So of course, it's not only in Cyprus, but in general in Europe, they established a solar strategy that one of the pillars they examined is the support of the European industry regarding the production of photovoltaics, since I think almost, I'm not sure, 80% of the materials and the technologies import from China. And also this is also a problem in the case of a crisis that may affect the further installation or further promotion of PVs. So it's not only a local thing, but it's a European thing to develop an industry that would provide the rest technologies.
I totally agree, and I mean, indeed, crises are happening lately quite often, and I think being able to serve your own needs is something that it should play a role. I saw that, Alana Maria, yeah, sorry.
I wanted to add something that maybe we shouldn't be looking for innovation to find a new technology, but on how to innovate in a small component of an established technology or in developing. So focus on a smaller area that where we can actually innovate rather than have a very
I understand. Going for the broader picture.
Yes. Maybe this is easier.
Yeah, I mean, we have had several discussions also with Cristobal, but I will take 5 more minutes, and since I saw Fanos just entering, and yeah, you're only 30 minutes late, but it's okay. So, Fano, I mean, you're here and you have a role. I mean, if you can come for 2 minutes or you can do it from there, just give us, I mean, first of all, Fanos is actually the chairman of the Association of Renewable Enterprises Cyprus. And it's good to have you here because he actually knows what are the problems, hopefully what are the solutions, and he could share some insights about how the industry sees what has been presented today. And I know that you are aware because we have discussed in advance, but please, Fano, share some of your insights and thoughts about today's topic.
On the progress of the industry, you mean, huh? I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Industry is facing a lot of challenges today. We have discussed it several times the last period. storage is it's a mandatory tool that we need to switch on, and regulatory framework should be stable, and the investment environment should be also stable. I mean, deviations from the regulatory framework, I mean, causes frustration in the investment on the investor side, and we need to be sustainable, as you said, but we need to provide this stable forward market.
So, I will take another question with you. So, Fano, thanks. I mean, the whole Association of Renewable Enterprises, do you see that they are willing to go towards the green transition? Do you see that there is a need? There is a need, but how do you see this coming? You said storage, you said renewables. Do you have specific things in mind? I mean, where do you see it going?
Yeah, we need to upgrade the role of the prosumer. I mean, we need to give a prosumer tools and incentives or disincentivize the business as usual by introducing time of use tariffs and introducing storage systems. I mean, in the small premises, whether it's residential, commercial, or industrial consumers. I mean, we need to enroll the end consumer in this energy system by pushing it to the direction of energy management, not by grants or funds, but by introducing the smartness, the smart meters, and disincentivize the use of electricity in the non-sunshine hours, let's say. In this way, we would push the whole market to change the mentality and the approach in using electricity. Also, electric vehicles could be an additional tool, especially with the vehicle-to-grid that we expect to come up in the next few years, I mean, to roll out. Aggregating-wise, consolidating-wise, electric vehicles and batteries of those could be the big battery bank of the system. So we need to enroll the consumer.
I'm glad that you mentioned it, because indeed it's going to keep on putting batteries and electric vehicles, maybe something else at the future. So, I mean, we have, I think, 5 minutes, let's say, for if there are any questions. 2 minutes, if there are any questions from anyone. So, thank you. Microphone is to you.
Thank you. Picking up from something that Fano said, and Dr. Zachariadis is mentioning the goals that we have towards 2030 with the reduction of carbon emissions and obviously the introduction of renewables. How does the ministry anticipate that this investment is going to happen? As Alexandros, as a representative of the Ministry of Energy and Commerce and Industry, can you let us know what you think about the amounts that have to be invested in renewables, and also who is going to make this investment in such an unstable environment for these investors?
There is an impact assessment that estimates the total cost, if I'm not right, if I'm correct, regarding in order to achieve our target regarding renewable energy saving, and I think, moreover, however, the cost, there is another benefits for the environment, the health, the local community, and of course, except for the funding of the investment will come from, except for local funds, we'll have funds for European funds, so the Resilience Recovery Fund, the Just Transition Fund, and also there is another fund regarding the Just Transition Fund. But more detail you can find in the NCP regarding the.
Just saying, if this is, for example, 2 billion euros, let's say, and we don't have a stable environment for investors, for private investment to come into the picture, I believe it's an obligation of the ministry to make sure that all
environment of insecurity and uncertainty is handled. So we have different factors. We have different limitations, we have unilateral limitations.
The policies and strategies are there, they have established in the NECP. However, we agree there are some delays in the many sectors regarding the operation of the competitive electricity market, the interconnectors, and there is some issues that of course affect the investors. And also there is some changes in the support schemes. However, we try to upgrade to make more favorable the support scheme to the public. And of course, we understand that this affects the investors and the consumer in many cases. However, in general, there is a continuous support schemes that will not have many changes over the years regarding the self-consumption, the small investor, the energy efficiency, and the save and upgrade scheme. However, of course, there is a lack in the large-scale investment. Currently, is operation the transition system for the electricity. But
if I may be fair to Alexandros, because obviously I hope this will be a series of discussions, and I hope you get the chance to ask the minister himself one of the next sessions. But before closing, I think Fanos wants to say something, and given that he came last, Fanos, last word, and then we can close, please.
I mean, taking the opportunity of the question raised by Dagi is, the goal of the Republic of Cyprus is a matter of economic competitiveness and how we keep up the economic growth of the country. If we fall behind any green transition or any green deal, this should be upgraded on a high administration level. It's not a matter of the Ministry of Energy anymore. It's a matter of the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Transport. We have several directives that they are governing this Green Deal and green transition. And there is from my point of view, there is a miscommunication and non-collaboration between these these ministries. And it's not just to write it up in an NECP. The biggest target should be, the biggest aim of everybody should be the time. Because we have seen it so many times. I mean, we were discussing 50 years ago about natural gas. Today, natural gas is an obsolete fuel. I mean, we are discussing about interconnection. By the time that the maturity of the project will be there, the interconnection could be an obsolete solution, taking consideration hydrogen storage and any other development, energy management. So it's a matter how fast we react and be proactive. And by the way that the public sector is behaving on the approach on this matter, I mean, we are falling behind. We cannot achieve anything because by the time we wake up, the other countries already went to sleep and they will wake up in the next morning, let's say.
Thank you for the takeaway message, Fanos. So, I mean, it's lunchtime. I know everyone is hungry, and it's been a long day. So I would like to first thank Cristobal and thanks all the participants for this discussion. I would like to thank you all for being here today. And I think Professor Malas would like a closing talk, and then we can actually go for lunch.
Okay, just to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for your patience. Very enlightening, I believe, for everybody. Thank you to the ambassador, to the European Commission, and a special thank, of course, to our colleagues that organized this, Eleni and the team, Marios and the Energy Group, all the people that participated. Thank you very much. So I want to just re-emphasize the point that Fanos said. Finish it. Without scientific input, you cannot develop policy. So today you heard a lot of scientific information, how to really develop a policy in terms of energy storage. And it is critical for a country like Cyprus to develop a very proactive policy about storage, because if we follow the trend that we've been following, we will actually have no policy on energy storage and we'll actually make the wrong decisions. If you remember, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we were talking about the interim solution of bringing natural gas. Have you ever heard anybody talking about interim solution? There is nothing more permanent than an interim solution. Okay, we're going to pay heavily because we didn't take a decision now on the LNG that we're going to import. So science was not there to develop policy, and some also politics certainly played a critical factor. So the reason we're having this discussion here today is just to emphasize that energy storage and correct decision is critical. Thank you very much.